very warm good evening to one and all. Thank you to each and everyone for joining us today for the event. So we're gonna start in next 5 minutes. Meanwhile, I request everyone to share the event to your friends and family members and just tell them about the importance of this event and get them along, make them join the event. So you have 5 minutes. Share the link and the posters on your social media platforms. See you all in 5 minutes. Good evening, one and all. I'm sure you guys went back to your friends and family members and asked them to join the event. Really appreciate everyone for doing that. This is Rutvika. I am the volunteer and communications coordinator at Youngistan Foundation. I've been volunteering here for the last 4 years and very happy to be part of this event and also the co-host for today's event. So starting off, Youngistan Foundation is one of India's largest volunteer-driven organization that spearheads multiple programs, and we organize and engage young socially driven individuals and provide a platform for them to come and volunteer with us. Regarding the programs, we focus on 5 different sectors, that is education, livelihood, women's health, food and nutrition, and youth development. You can read more about what our regular programs do and the kind of impact we make on our social media platforms and on our website, that is www.youngistanfoundation.org. Apart from all the regular programs that we have, during times such as disasters, where there is so much of conflict and where there is so much of need for hunger and food, that's when we also stepped in and tried to do whatever possible from our end. So in the year 2020, everybody were in this state of crisis. Everybody had no idea as to what is happening and what was the loss that we are yet to face. So during that time, in the month of March, we were in a situation as to how to help the vulnerable families out there in urban slums and different villages. And that's when Youngistan Foundation has formed a on-ground volunteer active team who used to go and help families in need. And that's how we were able to deliver 20 lakh meals to a lot of families out there from different communities. So thanks to all the volunteers. Apart from that, simultaneously, we also had an online volunteer team who were working with children in local slums and also in villages. So we had this amazing remote learning initiative that the education program team has conceptualized. So we used WhatsApp as an educational tool to communicate with our children. Isn't that great? So these are something that we do on a regular basis. But apart from that, believing the power of advocacy and believing the power if youngsters raise their voice for important topics such as gender equality and elimination of violence against women, we have been conceptualizing and practicing a virtual event for 16 days. So observing the United Nations Women 16 days of activism to end elimination of violence against women, we have, we have organized 2 virtual events. So one was last Saturday. I'm sure if you guys are here, this event is going to be much more nicer than the last event that we had. So today the theme for the event is representation. I would say misrepresentation of gender in Indian cinema and media. So we have amazing lineup of speakers who will be interacting and discussing with us on this vital topic. And let me tell you guys, this event is also live on Facebook. So it's live on 4 platforms, okay? It's live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So if any of your friends are having any trouble in accessing this link, please go back to your social media platforms, share the live link with your friends and family. Cool. And on this note, I'd want to end and I'd want all of you guys to use 2 things, while the discussion is happening. One is the reactions that is there on your Zoom. Because we can't communicate with each other, you have something called reactions. So please share your thumbs up or heart or smiley or claps or anything, okay? In that way, we'll understand our audience is active. And secondly, I want you guys to follow a couple of Zoom rules. I know this is like a virtual thing that is happening for the last 7 months. We are aware about it, but despite of that, I'd want you guys to turn on your cameras, because any day I'd love to see your faces than the names that you have on your Zoom platform. So just turn on your cameras and mute yourself, because when the speaker is talking, we want to hear them and not the noise. So please mute yourself. And of course, if you have any questions, store it with you, and you can ask us in the chat box, or you can ask us during the Q&A round. Okay, so can you guys leave a thumbs up? I'll know that, okay, people heard me. Good, good. I'm so happy to see all the thumbs ups and the real thumbs ups, not the reaction thumbs ups, but the real thumbs ups that I'm getting. Thanks, everyone. And for this, I would like to thank our partners for the event, Lamakan and Open Cultural Space in Hyderabad. All the youngsters know this place, and thank you so much for partnering with us. Second is the Jimmy Foundation, Breakthrough India, who have been spreading the word on their social media platforms in a very, very, very unique way. Thank you, Breakthrough. And all the creatives that you see, the posters and the collaterals, it is designed by ITSGD Studio, that is done by Mr. Sudhakar. Thank you very much for him. And all the live streaming help that we received today is from Richard. So thanks to you, Richard. We really enjoy your help. And yes, moving forward, I'd want to, Youngistan always has this ritual of setting the tone of any event with music. So I'd want to right now invite. Yes. And on the same note, I'd want to also thank our partners, the News Minute and Periphery, and the organization that Richard, the online streaming, is part of, is AID India. So thanks to all the partners and organizations, and of course to the entire team of the gender program at Youngistan Foundation for working hard in conceptualizing different ways to take this important topic to different people out there. So a huge kudos to all the volunteers who worked behind. And yes, so moving forward, I would like to invite our singer for the day, Miss Hannah Samuel, who's a singer and who enjoys every little form of art and is a Hyderabadi by heart. So Hannah, over to you. And I would step back now. So meanwhile, guys, everybody knows where the event is being live streamed. I'd want you guys to kindly go and share it on your social media platforms. Okay, thank you. And feel free to turn on your cameras. We'd love to see your faces. Thanks. Over to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, let's get going. Wise men say only fools rush there, but I can't help falling in love with you. Should I stay? Would it be a sin? But I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Something I'm meant to be. So take my hand, take my true, but I can't falling in love with you. Oh, I can't help falling in love. Hearts beat fast, colors unfold. How to be great? How can I love when I'm too far? Watching you stand, all of my time suddenly goes away somehow. One step closer. I have lived every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for now. I love you for a thousand. Time still beauty and love. Yes, I will be great. I will not let it be. Oh, what's dying in front of me? All of my doubts suddenly goes away. One step closer. I have loved every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you with love. I love you for a thousand. All along, I believed I would find you. Time has brought your heart to me. I've loved you for a thousand years. I love you for a thousand more. Thank you. That is all from my end. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I think that was wonderful. What a wonderful voice. And trust me, those two songs are one of my favorite songs of all time. It's lovely that we started off our event with your voice, and I hope that we collaborate in the future again. All right, guys. Now that we are pumped up with that beautiful song and with Hannah's beautiful voice, let's move over to our first speaker. So, our first speaker is none other than Sachet Puranik. So, Sachet Puranik happens to be a multi talented writer, playwright, filmmaker, actor, and director. He has creatively brought issues of gender and activism to audiences through many forms, especially film. Through his work in films of multiple languages, Sachet Puranik explores themes of gender, ethics, corruption, the class divide, and more. The work he has contributed to has received global recognition and promotes conversation around issues that are in urgent and increasing need of addressing. So over to you, Sachet.
Thanks a lot, Deeksha, for the very kind and wonderful introduction. I'm very excited, first of all, that I am getting to reach out to a outfit called Youngistan, and which includes that I qualify for this. I qualify as young. My official joke is that I'm only 202 years old. But what I'm really interested in for the future of the country, for the future of the world, for the future of humanity, so to speak, is in how the youngsters are going to form society. So it's really like, I think it's a great kind of investment we could be making into our individual futures, and I'm really happy and privileged to be here. Is Anu online? If Anu can also be given screen sharing um, uh, powers, so to speak. Anu Shankar, my colleague from Chikkadoda Art Lab where I work, is okay. I don't know. I guess Anu is not.
Is it Anu Shankar?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you can make him co-host, something
Yeah,
like
he
that.
is the co-host.
Yeah. So can Anu speak something?
Of
Sorry.
course, if he wants to.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, hi.
Hi. Yeah. So can you start the screen share?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay, 1 second. So I am personally looking forward to the discussion, and there is a lot to be said, but I thought let me just kind of open up the conversation, because there is a very enlightened list of panelists, and with the kind of questions that we'll have from the audience. So I just wanted to kind of do a rough deconstruction of the three words that I want to speak about, which is gender in art and activism, so to speak. So I'll start with something like, just the first word being gender, and if I had to like roughly like look at the two influences that construct gender, I would say that gender would come across as a construct of biology and identification. And of course, all of this is completely debatable and open to interpretation, and I would love more responses to that. But how I mean it as a construct of biology is that one is like a natural occurrence, so to speak, that a child is born, and it is checked between the legs as to what could be the most identifiable factor with which we can say if it is a baby boy or a baby girl. So there is an element of biology that kind of goes on to have a role to play in the construct. And then there is the identification, which is like when a person is growing up or is kind of engaging with society or responding to all the influences that the person has, there is this identification with a certain gender, with a certain community, with a certain orientation, with a certain non-committal identification. So there is a kind of range of possibilities, and I'm sure there are people who would be more competent to speak about it. But am very interested in these two things, that if gender is a construct of biology and identification, then how is it played out? Because like even when I work with an organization called MAVA, which is Men Against Violence and Abuse, MAVA Mumbai, and there is this constant question about like what is the role of people who don't qualify in the standard hegemonic gender model, so to speak. So how do we kind of find a way to respond to society or express what we have to? So if I look at that, then I come to the second word being art, and I'm sure that word needs no introduction. But I would look at art also as a construction of two main things, which is art being a construction of language and imagination. Because with language, I don't just mean like words or only phonetics, but I also mean that whether it be any form of art, be it music or painting, there is an inherent language, a code through which whatever the stroke of the paint or the note of the music or or whatever with you're doing with motion, with space, with time, is creating some meaning, or is invoking something. And that language, how that language is being used imaginatively, ultimately gives rise to art. And the third word being activism, which again, like a lot of people would want to look at it as a word which has connotations now, and it is like, oh, I'm not an activist, or I'm not a classic, I'm not a feminist, but there are ways in which this word is also constructed, which is like it is a construct of the individual and the societal. So yes, finally, Anu has been doing something on this specially for you. So yeah, maybe we can just go on by the slides, Anu, the next one. So yeah, this is already done. Like we can kind of, the audience can sync it, language and imagination. The gender one I had already spoken. It's not mentioned here, but yeah, you can keep going next. They've already gone through this. So this is just like a visual stimuli to kind of explain the same things I had said. And I would really want to give you a relief here that, if this gender is a construct of biology and identification, then how is this gender played out? And one of the prominent thinkers on gender theory, Judith Butler, has had an interesting quote, which has been kind of a source of inspiration for one of our latest works. And that's a film called Mard Hamdard. And it's a very exciting form. It's a collage film in which you are actually building on the material of other films. And it's an attempt to look at what can be called as non-toxic masculinity in 107 years of Indian cinema. So while we do these gender sensitization workshops, we always have a lot of examples of showing the misrepresentation, as the MC had said earlier, that more than representation, we want to talk about the misrepresentation. So in 107 years, we are saying there must be some glances, some glimpses, some nuances, some shades of masculinity, which probably didn't get the kind of attention they deserved, because the other ones, the toxic ones, got more, maybe it made more business sense, or maybe it kind of appealed to the, so to speak, the lowest common denominator of what escapist entertainment or art has to be. So Anu, if you can just show us, we have a small teaser of Mard Hamdard. And what's really interesting is that while the teaser is actually very short, the duration, it is meant to feel longer. So that is something we have attempted with this edit. And it's, as I said, it's a montage film. So it'll kind of give you an idea about what the film is. And I really wish that with an audience like this, it's a full-length documentary, an essay documentary. I wish at some later stage, maybe Rinki and we can talk, but we would love to do a closed door screening of this film for an audience, a young audience, and see, the responses to it. So Anu, if you can just show us the teaser.
My client Shikadoda Art Lab would hereby like to clarify and issue a disclaimer in public interest that the film Mard Hamdard / Male Empath Prelude, hereby referred to as Collage Film 1, is essential and philosophically an essay documentary that built onto the footage of other Hindustani films, bracket, including but not limited to mainstream Bombay cinema and beyond, bracket complete, purely for academic purposes of decoding, demystification and destruction. Sorry, I stand corrected, deconstruction of the portrayals of bracket non bracket complete toxic masculinities in 107 years of Indian cinema. The form of collage film has historically originated from the surrealist movement, which played a critical role in the creation of the aforementioned art form And my client School Arts Film 1 revives humane, progressive, vulnerable, and most importantly, empathetic look at the Indian male on celluloid. Colarge Film 1 has no profit motivation or plans of further monetization. It is not breaking any copyright claims whatsoever of unlawful public exhibition and distribution of the source films. Colarge Film 1 is an open source project for purposes of research, documentation, archiving, and creating interpretation, adheres to the principles of the copyleft phenomenon. I beseech the court to consider this as a special and exceptional opportunity to reveal the humanity through the non-toxic masculinities in Hindustani cinema. In a world full of Kabir Singhs and Arjun Reddys, will the unlikely but true Indian film hero stand up? I think I'm done. माझं झालं.
Thank you. Thank you, Anu. So as you get an idea, like, and this was a form that we could develop only in the pandemic time, so to speak, because otherwise we were out there, trying to shoot and make films and doing shows, and really, like, most of our work, whether it be art or activism, and I think there is no distinction between the two at some level, would be in public spaces, and like it would require the assembly of people together, whether it is a theater show in a proscenium or in an alternate space, or the people assembling to watch a film. So now I think it's a very interesting time also for to kind of use the pandemic as an opportunity to find ways of sustaining that how can you really reclaim the roads and the streets as sites of protest and still continue to do that online. So, Anu, if you could just go take us through some of the posters that I wanted you to see of, how, like, what are the kind of solutions we have in front of us, and how does this kind of the Venn diagram between art and activism merge? Is Anu there? Okay, thank you. So yeah, you can start with loitering. Yeah, the second poster, loitering. When you have 15 minutes, every second counts, my friend Anu. Okay, there seems to be a problem. Hello. Okay, I guess I won't wait for.
I mean, I'm sharing.
Are you sharing? But we can only see it like a small thumbnail image. Can anyone see a full image of it? No. It's okay, Anu. I think I'll just speak about it. The visuals, you can just put them in the chat or something like that if you feel like. But I'm really looking at like when we started doing work, we really didn't have a vocabulary or understanding of gender theories, because it was really not. It became a buzzword only like in a couple of decades. And I think in that sense, we had a lot to miss out on. That a lot of our work that we were doing, we only in kind of retrospective, with a retrospective kind of a glance, you could see that, oh, there are elements of, questioning the gender bias, or what is the male gaze, or what is, the theories of representation. And my training at the film school definitely had a huge contribution to it. But what was really important was also like as some kind of unofficial bullying, which is also called as ragging, that happens in film schools, and more so by the women who were my, like, a year or a couple of years senior to me, and whether it's the names like Simone de Beauvoir, or the seminal books that are supposed to be studied. It was really like we, as not being students of literature or not being students of humanities, sometimes you have to do that kind of catching up on the studies yourself. And I think with the way in which the internet has opened up now, there is no real excuse to not have an articulation about these things or not be completely aware. So yeah, finally that the poster is open. Loitering is, as you can see, it's a documentary theater performance about personal stories in public spaces. So there's a seminal book called Why Loiter, written by these wonderful authors called Shilpa Phadke, Samira Khan, and Shilpa Ranade. And it was a non-fiction study into Bombay city and how its public spaces were occupied. And where is the representative, like you could see that what are the patterns there and the ideas of safety and how many women are out on the roads and what kind of activities are they indulging in, and why, like, this idea of loitering or just occupying public space with an agenda was primarily a male trait. So it really asks some very pertinent questions. It's a fascinating book. And we made a play about this. And like, one of the forms of documentary theater is that it really it doesn't depend on professional actors to tell its story, in the sense it requires the working with non-professional actors, and the text is devised from personal stories that these people had in public spaces and how they are now recreating it in, like, one of the safest spaces in the world, which is the theater stage. So again, like, documentary theater or working with non-professional actors has been a kind of important concern for me ever since a film that I had worked on called Court, for which we cast a lot of non-professional actors, and whose story is being told through whose face, through whose voice, who's having the agency and representation are very important ethical things that we need to think about. And I think there is also a great way out to completely revolutionize the economics of filmmaking and theater making and or art making in general by making such radical choices. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Mrs. and Marx is about Karl Marx's wife Jenny Marx, and it kind of looks at the scholar through a human lens, and looks like, tries to humanize him by his relationship with his wife and his children. So it was also I believe 150 years of, or maybe 200 years of Marx's. It was his birth anniversary, and I've been doing a show called Karl Marx and Kalba Devi, which is another kind of art or activism. But Mrs. and Marx was an important milestone that a German woman living in India who's interested in Marx, and me, who's been doing some work with Karl Marx's kind of revolutionary thoughts and writings, and this cross cultural collaboration to find, like, this idea of the migrant couple in today's times, and the kind of trappings of capitalistic society and poverty and malnutrition, and the very compelling personal stories of what kind of odds do they live through to really do the kind of work they did. Next slide, please. And yes, this is about Ammi Jaan, which again, I thought this would be a play that would stop being relevant, but uncannily, it continues to be relevant. Even recently, you would be knowing about, how the idea of how beef ban is continuing, and then there is discussions in the Karnataka government, and so I mean, how the cow has been really politicized, and there was this very exciting festival, the Rangashankara Theatre Festival of 2018, which had a theme that they wanted to curate a festival of banned texts. And in that sense, Ammi Jaan was a adaptation that worked very well, because it is a play that happens in Kannada and Dakhini Urdu. So Dakhini, I'm sure people in Hyderabad would know more about Dakhini. But it looks at as the protagonist is a very quirky character, this woman who runs a small cyber cafe in Tannery Road, Bangalore, and she's not really educated, but she's been watching all these fake news and these things that are coming on her devices, so to speak, and she's cooking jackfruit biryani on stage, and she's talking about her son's irritable bowel syndrome, because of which he cannot handle meat, and through the play we get to know that, like, she's cooking this because the son has been arrested, because the government had a new kind of scheme through which they were mapping the dreams of their citizens, and they through his dreams they found that a plate of beef biryani had kind of come entered his subconscious, so which kind of put him as a prime suspect as to, how could you even be dreaming about beef, so that means you are kind of offending our mother. So this idea of using the woman, the mother of the nation, the cow, and putting them in kind of one pot where this biryani is being made. So like usage of black comedy and as a genre, how these things can be interesting. So I don't want to take too much of your time. I think we are already late, but maybe just take us through the last couple of slides. I think the posters are done. I want to end with a small music video, which I'd like everyone to watch, because I really wanted to just throw these terms at the young people, because I think really that more like, instead of talking about my own work or what can be done, I'm more interested in seeing what these words do to the people and for the future. So like if this art and activism have given rise to a new construct called artivism, and that artivism can be connected with more words like gender, and becomes gen artivism, or caste and caste artivism, or the possibilities are endless, because there is like this kind of definition, watertight compartmentalization of art and activism needs to go, because the more and more we are living in a post-pandemic world, we'll have to be realizing there's these, as young people, we have to take these words and make newer words out of them. So like there is subvertising, culture jamming, and guerrilla communication, and I think really like the future of community is the future of expression, the future of responding to the times that we are living in lies in this. And yeah, I'll just play a last video, which is called Mother of the Nation, which is kind of using this idea of subvertising or culture jamming, where we have taken an existing Hindi flute song and we have taken some of their footage out, just kept the responses, but we have added our own footage to it. So in some sense, we finally have like the Mother of the Nation singing to the audience. So like we have a cow singing. So we've replaced Raj Kapoor from an iconic song, Jis Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai, and we have made it into a cow singing. And the idea is to, I can see some kind of smiles coming, and the idea is to kind of make people smile, and then by the end of it to really ask some very pertinent questions and really look at the absurdity of it, that in our country that people are being killed on the suspicion of what they are eating, what they are cooking, and what kind of professions they belong to. And this is all a complete kind of what do you call that, a screenshot for a very obvious kind of religious or minority discrimination. So if we can just end with this video, Mother of the Nation, and it's a slightly long video, but I would really ask you to engage with it, and I'd love to know your comments here or later in the Q&A.
150 years of my birth in October 2019, the Chinese calendar in India will announce it as the year of the cow. And finally, the father of the nation will make way for the mother of the nation.
चौराहों पे चलते होते हैं, हम गायों पे खर्चे होते हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं, जहाँ मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है, मैं हूँ गौ माता, मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है, जहाँ सत्य अहिंसा बिकते हैं, वहाँ खून खराबे दिखते हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं, मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है, मैं हूँ गौ माता, मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती के ये गोरख धंधे से मैया का कलेजा फटता है, मैया का खून बिखरता है। गौ माता ही क्या बकरी मौसी भी हलाल और छट्टा सहती है। हम उस देश के वासी हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं। मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है। कर दूध जो छीना दूध सही, कर गोश्त जो मांगा गोश्त सही। इंसान की मांगे बढ़ती रही, गौ माता है चुप तो चुप ही सही। रक्षा का तकल्लुफ किसको दे, बहनों का सहारा होता है, चारे पे गुजारा होता है। कहने के लिए हम जननी हैं, खाने के लिए बस पन्नी है। हम उस देश के वासी हैं, हम उस देश के वासी हैं। मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है। सब लोग हमें माँ मानते हैं, इंसान को कम पहचानते हैं। ये माँ के बच्चे भोले से क्यों खून को जायका मानते हैं। ये अपने अपने धर्मों से हर मौत का कारण जानते हैं, कुछ मौत को आसान मानते हैं। अब माता मुझको मान ही लो, मेरे नाम पे कभी जान न लो। जिस देश में गंगा बहती है, उस देश में मैया सहती है। प्रेम की गंगा बहनी थी, पर खून की नदियाँ बहती है। मेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या होती है। आस्तिक तेरे नाम पे हत्या, नास्तिक तेरे नाम पे हत्या। रामा तेरे नाम पे हत्या, अल्लाह तेरे नाम पे हत्या। यीशु तेरे नाम पे हत्या, नानक तेरे नाम पे हत्या। बुद्धा तेरे नाम पे हत्या, बकरी तेरे नाम पे हत्या। सुअर तेरे नाम पे हत्या होती है, इंसान की हत्या।
Thank you. Thank you once again. I think I've kind of overstepped my time limit, but looking forward to more responses, more questions, and to the group discussion. And thank you for your time, and continue the conversation later. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Sachit. Thank you for those words. Thank you for your speech. I think it was wonderful. It was impactful for sure. I love the fact that you mentioned in the beginning of your speech, you mentioned gender, art, activism as three different constructs. And then finally, you got it into one kind of a sphere, that all of them are connected, right? Also, love the fact that you mentioned Loitering and Mrs. and Marx as books, obviously, but the fact that you guys come in contact with personal experiences and stories of people who really need a voice, right? You want to hear their perceptions, not all the noise that people kind of build up, right? Also, in Mrs. and Marx, the humanistic approach on political concepts such as capitalism is something that is missed out, I feel. It's seen on a very economical, stage, but you don't really see how people feel personally about how people feel and get impacted about such, constructs. So thank you a lot. I would love to mention the fact that you mentioned a phrase, the future of community is the future of expression. Really, really impactful in all sorts of forms. And I'm sure all of us will take something from your speech to ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, guys, before I introduce myself, because I forgot to introduce myself in the beginning, I would love to obviously point out the fact that if anyone has any questions for Sachit or any of our panelists in the upcoming, obviously, a couple of minutes, please keep it till the end. We'll be having a panel discussion, and I kindly request your patience on that. So my name is Diksha Chituri. I am 19 and I am a student in St. Francis College for Women. I'm also an active volunteer in Youngistan Foundation's Women of Courage. All right, now that the introduction is done, let's move on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Preetam Chakravarti. Preetam Chakravarti's career as a theatre actor, writer, activist, and professor of screenwriting in Ramanaidu Film School reflects her dedication to the representation and portrayal of women in cinema and also transgender rights, among other areas of interest. Preetam Chakravarti has had many well-known performances in films and has even scripted and performed in a one-woman show that toured India and the United States. She has also extensively researched, written, and translated multiple publications and books which are highly regarded. Over to you, Preetam.
Start me off with the question so that it becomes easier for me to take it from there. Deepika, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Could you?
Yes. Why don't you start me with a question?
Yes, sure. Just give me a second.
Hello? Yes?
Yes, Preetam.
So
So starting off,
hello?
Yes, Preetam, you're audible right now. Ritvika here. So the first question we wanted you to answer for is the representation of women in Indian cinema. So what is your say on it? If you could shed some light on that, and you can take over from there.
Yeah. Firstly, let me say that this is a very umbrella question, you're asking like Indian cinema and what is the role they play. If you take 90% of the films, I'm either a lover or a mother or but I suppose these are the only two roles I have to play in Indian cinema. I have to be someone's either the caregiver or the romantic partner. Otherwise, I don't think women in per se in 90% of the films play any other role more than that. So that by itself should, but this is something that we are encouraging our students not to do, take more agency than that, because that's definitely not, at least among the panelists, I know Saujanya, I know definitely Saujanya and I are not just caregivers and romantic partners. We are much more than that. And do we come across, I mean, look at the kind of professions that women artists are even given in film scripts. You are either a teacher, a gynecologist, probably a lawyer, or very rarely an activist. Why have we not seen a woman judge? Why is it difficult for us to even have a woman judge? We do have women judge in Indian courts. So why is it difficult for us to even conceive of a judge and not just a divorce lawyer? And why not a criminal lawyer? Why have we not come up with or even when you take series like Suits, which is about a legal company. The company is headed by a woman. Have we ever seen anything like that, where men are working under women, taking orders from her, doing what she wants, being answerable to a woman? Has there been one case in point, something like that Any one of you can even tell me, maybe perhaps there was and I missed it. And if it was, I will go back and catch it. And firstly, we should get out of this mode of storytelling where we are so hero bound. Once we start referring to our characters as protagonists, the moment we use the word the protagonist and not hero or heroine, we will automatically take the gender out of it, because a protagonist can be anyone. There is no gender to a protagonist, but the hero and heroine automatically puts them in a box, and therefore they have to do certain things alone. A hero is a person who nobody is born a hero. A hero is something heroism has to be achieved. So, but a protagonist has a journey to pass through. Why aren't we asking our protagonist? Why isn't any film till this date, when a script is given to you, why have they not used the word protagonist and not hero or heroine? Let's start with that.
Yes. So Preetham, if we talk about films, majority of them, like the popular myth is this, that it reflects the society. So we just adapt whatever we see in the society and we portray it in the films. That's why we don't see a lot of women oriented, or as you were rightly mentioning, the protagonists. So can you highlight your some information on that? Do you think we should leave out movies that celebrate misogyny by just saying that it is just a reflection of society, and maybe another female or a feminist, so-called, that people usually say, should become a director and should highlight the rights of female or anything on that? Can you please share that?
Again, we would be going into the same box. It is not necessary that I have to be a woman to speak about a woman issue, or a man to speak about a male issue, because let's accept patriarchy is not something practiced by men alone. Patriarchy is, we as women are equal participants in patriarchy, and we do make very patriarchal decisions, and we have patriarchal opinions in our head, and that is something which society has constructed into our mentality. So cinema is not a reflection. If cinema was really a reflection of the society, then do you really have men of 25-year-old running around on the street saying, we have a Romeo, we need a Juliet, which is the most popular Telugu song? Do you think you would have any respect for a man who chases you, who stalks you, and then calls it love? Would you be able to? Would you be so? Why? But then that is what the hero does, right? The hero first insults the girl for her dresses, for the way she is, for the way she behaves, for whatever she does, and then she happens to fall in love. I would respect a man who's probably actually shutting him up and telling him, like, okay, Arjun, ready? Fuck off. This is not how you talk to your sister or your mother. But so why do you talk to someone who's not related to you this way? And this whole question of, will you do this to your sister? Don't you have a sister or a mother? And shouldn't you be treating other women as sister and mother? That is what we take as pledge. Come on, all Indians are my brothers and sisters. Then who are you going to marry? Who are you going to have a child with? You'll have to look for a non-Indian, because every other Indian here is your brother or sister. So that's going to be incest, okay?
But according to you, Preethamji, which film, according to you, has highlighted the characters of any gender in a right way? If you could just, give few examples that you have and want our audience to watch.
I would say, directors like Shyam Benegal, when the middle cinema was coming, there were more agency for women. I'm not talking about the art cinema or the commercial cinema, but people like Shyam Benegal were taking women characters more seriously and giving them a lot more to do and say in their scripts. And getting a call.
So just to give you guys an insight, Preetam ma'am is right now at hospital, so she has a family emergency. But then she didn't want to cancel this event. She wanted to be part of it and speak to everybody here. So yeah,
Sorry.
that's the background of it. Yeah, go ahead, Preetam ma'am. I was just giving them an insight of where you are. That's it. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sitting outside the ICU. My husband has just undergone a surgery. So I'm talking to you from outside the ICU. So
Yes, we really respect you for the time you've taken, ma'am. Thank you so much.
What I would like to know is if any of the other panelists are there, if they can throw some questions, then perhaps we can have a discussion.
Sure, we have Saujanya here, we have Harish here, Sachit, all the panelists. Maybe you can just unmute yourself, and if you have any questions, you can ask Preetam ma'am. Okay, so ma'am, we also have a panel discussion at the end. So if any of the audiences have any questions for you, I would like to take it in the chat box and I can send it to you because I understand that you cannot stay till the panel discussion. So
Yes.
I can send it to you. And we have one question: who, according to you, is the Sham Bengal of today's time? This is by Harish.
I don't think we have another Shyam Benegal right now. Yes, yet it has not come. It has not come. And on the same context, I will say not all of Shyam Benegal's films are something to be worshipped or idealized. I'm not idealizing Shyam Benegal either. There are films in which I find a lot of holes, but at least Shyam Benegal tried something. But regional cinema has done nothing. If you take a film like, case in point is a film like Oh Baby. Oh Baby was written by a woman, directed by a woman. The protagonist is a woman, and what happens in the film? It stars yourself, and it is the audience who it was targeted for the women audience, and the women audience in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh made it a hit film. So how does having a woman director make storytelling better?
I think that's an important point that you pointed out. However, we need. How do you understand the fact that people are saying that there's no diversity in women's roles? First, there are not many women directors or producers that we have. But then you mentioned the point that it's not necessary that having a woman director will kind of change the understanding of women in cinema as well. So where do we draw the line? What do we exactly do? What's the solution to it?
It will be beginning from. It has to begin. The first step obviously would have to be a sensible woman director, okay, who's going to write the subject. But that need not be essentially the only way by which we can go with it. Like when I spoke about Suits and I compared Oh Baby, they're definitely completely different genre, different stories altogether. But then Suits is written by a man, but the lead is a woman. So how do things change? I don't know, but which we can now is the time we can actually learn to boycott and not watch something that need not be watched. Now because the button is in your hand, no more are you forced to go to a theater. You're sitting at home. So what happens is when an obnoxious film like Lakshmi Bomb comes, say for instance, people watch it for the sake of what is this? What are people fighting about? Why is this why are people fighting about this? So for that reason, you go and watch the film. Arjun Reddy got watched because of all these controversies, not because people love the film. But unfortunately, you bought the ticket for it and you went to the theater to watch the film, and therefore you are a participant in commercial, in making that a commercial success. You might be completely against the film, but to be against the film, you still have to watch it to know what it has said to be against it. That means you have to participate in some way to say, I'm against this.
One more question for you. The fact that we're obviously talking about Indian cinema right now, and we spoke a little bit about not going to theaters and boycotting would be our first move, right? As audience. And I think it's really important. I think people forget the fact that the ball is in our court and not in their court. We could definitely make a difference for sure. How do you understand the medium of OTT platforms? Do you think people, considering there's a huge consumption of OTT like Netflix and Prime, and the fact that the creativity sort of is more there, you could probably experiment with your content. Do you think that's a good platform to start with such changes and introduce?
Definitely. And I think there are actually platforms like Geo short films, for instance. When you go into Geo and you look at their short films, you will see women characters which you've never seen in any of the other films in your regular cinema. So it's not that there are that those things don't get made, but then those are being made from. If I'm the filmmaker, I have to make it from my pocket. Ultimately, filmmaking is a very costly profession. There are so many people involved in it. A minimum of 300 people are involved in the making of a feature film. So which means so many livelihoods are dependent on this medium. So OTT is definitely a place where we can start making our voices be heard, and it is time that we did it also.
One more question for you.
Yeah.
We've obviously spoken about the roles of women, right? And the lack of diversity, sort of, for women. Also, an important factor in movies are the songs, especially in Indian cinema. Across the songs given to women are very discriminative and almost to a point that it's very sexualized, right? How do we understand that? Where does the entire thinking of being, if it's a woman, we're going to write certain specific lyrics for her, or do it in a certain way, represent her in a certain way, give her certain dance moves, and if it's a man, it's all okay with it. So as far as songs is concerned, especially the fact that when the songs are released on YouTube, they hit a couple of million views, and people are genuinely consuming those songs, right? So how do we counteract that?
It is from the regional cinema these voices have to come. That is where we have to begin. Because Hindi people automatically assume Indian cinema is always assumed to be Hindi cinema, but then we are making cinema. I'm good. I'm in that UN meeting. I'll just finish the meeting and I'll call you. Okay. Yeah. Bye. So I'm back. And we are the only people who use songs for absolutely entertainment purpose and nothing else. Musical genre is a separate genre by itself. It's not as if there are other films have not use songs, but nobody uses songs the way Indian cinema uses. And so perhaps that's where it's your age people who have to begin to make the changes. I've come too late in the race. So I can, at the maximum, as a mentor, I can make sure that my students don't do the same mistake that has been. So the first question I ask my students when they come up with the script is that, please tell me if you would be watching this script, if this was made into a film 20 years later, would you be willing to show it to your daughter or your son and say, this is my first film I made? And do you think you'll feel happy about it? If you think you will be unhappy about it, throw the script. So for me, my scale is my daughters. If I think my daughters are going to feel completely insulted, then I don't go ahead with the thought at all. Because these films do not have shelf life. They will die on their own. Arjun Reddy will definitely die on its own. So we don't need to kill it. But let us not give more oxygen to Arjun Reddy. At least that we can stop. And I guess at this point I have to say bye and leave because I'm needed at ICU inside. So I have to run. And any questions which comes up, feel free to WhatsApp the questions to me and I will react and you can circulate my reactions. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for including me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, guys. So that was Preetham ma'am, and just to conclude what she said in a few points, she spoke about how, she started with a very basic point about the usage of words such as hero and heroine and replacing them with the word protagonist, right? Considering protagonists don't really have any gender associated to it, and why can't we also the lack of diversity in roles for women in Indian cinema as such. She spoke about how patriarchy is a consequence of not just men's actions, but also women also have a lot of, responsibility to take. We also need to understand that she mentioned how, she mentioned how not just songs, but the certain type of movies should not be appreciated by the audience itself, since the ball is in our court. And yeah, that's it. So let's move on to our next speaker for the day. So our next speaker is Harish Iyer. Harish Iyer is an activist, advocate for equal rights, and has brought to the foreground issues of inequality, injustice, and even has used his platform to speak to people at conferences such as Think and TEDx. Harish continues to campaign for issues related to LGBTQ plus rights, women's rights, child rights, and both the rights and dignity of survivors of abuse. So over to you, Harish.
Thank you so much, Diksha. It's been a real honor to listen to Sachit and the ma'am before, Preetham ma'am as well. I think all through my childhood I've been influenced by cinema, and people often say that cinema is a reflection of society. I say that the inverse is also true. A nation is only as good as the cinema it makes. Okay, so I personally think that it is incredibly important to see representation of all kinds in cinema. From an LGBT perspective, I remember years back there was this film called Badnaam Basti. This was we had just moved out of the black and white era, and there was this film, and the film basically touched on homosexuality, and this was in 70s that this film was there. And then the film went into some archives and people didn't even know about it until recently, when people started speaking about sex and sexuality a little openly. when the archives were dug up and they found out that there's this film called Badnaam Basti. But after that, when we are speaking about homosexuality in Indian cinema, there was another character called Piku, and it was a film called Mast Kalandar. It had uh, Anupam Kher play this character. It was a regional language film, which is, I mean, a Hindi film, because Hindi is a regional language as well. So it was a film, and basically the the film had Anupam Kher wearing all kinds of gaudy, atrocious clothes and walking around. He was almost like a peacock in motion, and that was and but the good part about that he was the villain in the film. Okay, so it actually, though it was regressive in one part where it kind of created a stereotype of a queer man, it also showed that, you know what, we are not these very nice, very sweet, very delicate uh, beings. We were also capable of being nasty, of being rude. There are all shades of queerness, so there's not just one shade of queerness. We are nice people, we are bad people, we are saviors, we are abusers also. So we are all kinds of people, so there's no one type. And that's the problem that I have with any kind of cinema, is when you project. I don't have a problem with people showing queer people as as people who are feminine, queer men as feminine. But I have a problem with cinema showing queer men as only feminine. That is the problem. The operative word is only. The operative word is not feminine. I don't have a problem. I have a feminine side to myself, and I quite appreciate. I quite you know I use both pronouns he or she, and interchangeably depending on what I feel like at that moment. So I don't have a problem with me accepting my feminine side. I don't need to be like a man. I think there's nothing like a man that exists in this world, or nothing like as a woman that exists in this world also. When you're speaking about cinema, then of course then came the film My Brother Nikhil, and by My Brother Nikhil, there was if you remember, there was a Hindi film which kind of popular, Kal Ho Na Ho, which popularized this character called Kanta Bai. So Kanta Bai was this person who'd walk inside the bedroom of Saif Ali Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, and they both would be in some sort of compromising position. Okay, so the Kanta Bai became like this, how the Bai walks into you when you're somehow having sex, so that became like a representation. That was one of the most loud representations, where you could see that, there's something, you you could use the word gay, though it was not explicitly gay, they were just pretending. Then came, of course, My Brother Nikhil, which was a beautiful film, but the whole film didn't have the word gay. Okay, it was understood in publicity, it was understood everywhere that it was a film of that kind. But parallelly, there were other films, like there was Fire, which was there, which was about which had Shabana, and it created a lot of ruckus. Shiv Sena, the now very progressive Shiv Sena. I don't want it to be political, so I don't want to name the Shiv Sena, but I named the Shiv Sena. So, so so Shiv Sena basically went out and they wanted to burn down everyone, because the characters were called Radha and Meera at that time. And then they changed the name and they all became very happy. As long as you don't give them God names, it's fine. So that showed about lesbianism or bisexuality, as one may interpret the way they could interpret the film. Then of course there was another film called Sadak, uh, not the Sadak 2, the atrocious Sadak 2 by the Mahesh Bhatt camp, but there was the film called Sadak, which had Alia's sister Pooja participating in it, and it had Sadashiv Amrapurkar as a brothel owner. It was about women being forced in sex trade. Then there was a film which had which again it showed a negative character. There was another film called Tamanna, which was directed by Pooja Bhatt herself, which was about uh, Tiku. There was this trans person called Tiku who adopts a child, and this was a film about Tiku. Um, and Paresh Rawal had played the very BJP Paresh Rawal had played the character over there. So I think after that, it's only recently that of course, we had Dostana, which was pretend gay. Okay, that was there, and you had a lot of films in between which showed gay people in atrocious roles. There was no trans representation. If there was trans representation, the trans representation was only trans women. I'm yet to see a representation of a trans man. I'm yet to see people spelling out the difference between trans and intersex in a film. And these all are themes that people could take up. Um, that's not happened to the extent. One very progressive film that I can speak about for us together is Margarita with a Straw. It spoke about so many intersections. It spoke about the intersection of disability and sexuality. It spoke about bisexuality. How it's where Kalki Kekla's character was bisexual. It spoke about disability, and it spoke about how somebody with cerebral palsy could fall in love with somebody who who's visually impaired, and they fall in love, and both are women, both are cis women. So I think that was a khichdi of a lot of intersectionality, which was beautiful. I and now the kind of films that are coming, I think again, I don't want to politicize this, so that's why I would just want Akshay Kumar to go back and start eating mangoes with his favorite mango eater, and not act in films at all, because the kind of films he makes, he gets into this Avatar where the Lakshmi bomb film that he made. Um, it was atrocious. The way he showed that there was a trans character, which is of course the Hindi version of another regional film, which is Kanchana. So I think, and now recently there is other incredibly stupid film called Pati Patni, or which we all should protest against. MX Player, which is owned by Times of India, which basically runs campaigns on how they support LGBT rights, and they wanted to do everything. Has this Ada Sharma is the name of this cis woman who plays this character, and she plays the trans character in the film where they've shown her standing and urinating and stuff like that. It's called Pati Patni or Panga. So I think what the point that I'm trying to make is it is so important for us to understand issues. It's important uh, to address issues before you address issues. So it's important that you peel off all layers of the character before you write a character in your head. Um, and understand, I just wish that people believed in the power of cinema as much as I, as an audience, believe in the power of their craft. I believe that cinema can inspire. I believe that cinema has the power to influence people. I believe that cinema is a very powerful medium. And that's why it shocks me and it upsets me to see that cinema, that there's such a beautiful weapon. Uh, Weapon is the wrong word, but for lack of another word, there's such a beautiful tool that people have, and people are completely going bonkers with it and doing exactly the opposite of what it should be intended, what the intention of it should be. So I think cinema has the power to change, and I'm not saying that queer characters uh, make queer characters like the saviors and this very kind-hearted souls all the time. Show us in all shades of anger, show us in all shades of love, show us in all shades of lust, show us in all shades of queerness. We just don't want to be defined and boxed in one shade. We just don't want to be defined and boxed in one character. And I think when people often say, um, uh, we often speak about breaking stereotypes. I would like to tell people that, the biggest stereotype that we should be breaking is normal. Normal is a stereotype that means none of these films should be normal. So because human beings are not normal. Human beings are not a monolith. We don't think a certain way. We don't behave a certain way. We don't behave in a certain pattern. And that's why it's important to break that myth. And cinema has to come of age, um, not just about um, not just about representation of sexuality, but also in representation of gender. So that was my TED talk. You want to ask anything? And I'm moving to the questions if there's anything.
Thank you so much for your beautiful TED talk. It was really amazing. Thank you so much. And I really love the way you said that the nation is as good as the film, which is absolutely true. And I completely agree with that. Nation is absolutely, in a way, it's an extension of the expression. It's an extension of who we are. Cinema is an extension. And that is our expression. And thus, it is very important to come out with great content. And yes, it is very, very important to even let the other genders and other sexualities to tell their story, to tell it the way it is without any just unnecessary tags and all of these just putting up for no reason at all. And it's highly and very importantly pointed out by you that it is very important to unlearn what we actually learned. It's very important. Thank you so much for this absolutely insightful talk. It was really great to have you. And hello, everybody. I am Dheera Konduri. I am 19 and I am also studying in St. Francis College for Women as well. And I'm also working as a volunteer at Youngistan Foundation with Women of Courage program. So before we move on for the next speakers, I'm sure hearing about three speakers and their absolutely insightful account on what they have given us, their thought-provoking words, I'm sure a little bit of music would also give us a little bit of treat and delight. So here we have Hannah again with another song for us. Over to you, Hannah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you. This is a very simple, well-known song. Please sing along if you know this song already. जो दिल से लगे उसे कह दो हाय 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 जो दिल ना लगे उसे कह दो बाय 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 आने दो दिल में आ जाने दो कह दो मुस्कुराहट को हाय 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 जाने दो दिल से चले जाने दो कह दो घबराहट को बाय 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 love you जिंदगी love you जिंदगी love you जिंदगी love me जिंदगी मुस्कुराओ हाय 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 जाने दो दिल से चले जाने दो ये तो घबराओ बाय बाय Already, I want all of us to sing right now together. Love you, Zindagi. Love you, Zindagi. Love me, Zindagi. One last time. Love you, Zindagi. Love you, Zindagi. Love you, Zindagi. Love me, Zindagi. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I couldn't respond earlier, but thank you so much for your responses. And yes, love you, Zindagi. Over to you, Diksha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It was really needed. Thank you so much. You were amazing as usual. So now we move on to the next speaker for this evening, Saujanya Tamalapaklu. Saujanya Tamalapaklu has specialized in and researched gender and caste violence and is an assistant professor of gender studies at Tata Institute of Social Sciences at Hyderabad. Her areas of teaching expertise include intersectionalities, sexuality, literature, media studies, and masculinities. Through multiple publications, Professor Saujanya Tamalapaklu has researched issues related to caste, honor, skin color discrimination, violence against women, and many more. Over to you, Saujanya.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So I would like to begin with asking a question to you. Why didn't you invite me to talk about, say, the representation of lesbians on film, on Indian cinema, or you could have asked me to talk about say queer sexualities represented in media or social media, wherever, like in the films largely, or world cinema to Indian cinema. So my question is also kind of directing you to think on these lines, that our identities are diverse, very diverse. Okay, so suppose if you come to my daughter's school, okay, I'm just mother of a daughter and nothing beyond that. They may hardly know that I'm a faculty, or I do this research or whatever, like as a researcher or a activist. So similarly, so also we are a lot fragmented that way, okay, in a society that is very complex in terms of the diversity and segregation and discrimination. We live in a very complex society where we are also fragmented. Fragmented, I'm talking in very philosophical sense. Okay, so I would like to, I mean, definitely I asked a question, but I know you don't have an answer, and I'm definitely going to talk about the theme that you have assigned to me. So I would like to begin by, taking you through certain invisibility and visibilities in our society. So we live in a society that has two major groups. Okay, so this one group, for one group, caste is something like ancient, obsolete, rural, or not very relevant to the contemporary society. Okay, and this group of people may very easily give an advice that don't try to see caste everywhere. Okay, so you also have another group which lives caste at each step of their life. So something as simple as what's your name, or where do you live, may be an extremely threatening question. Like, it shouldn't be a threatening question, right? Like to reveal your name or your surname or where you live. But this itself becomes an absolutely threatening question for the other group of people. Okay, so therefore they view caste everywhere. Okay, they view caste everywhere. And suppose if you're talking about a film like Margarita with a Straw. Okay, so why lesbian sexuality cannot be discussed using the characters from lower caste community? Okay, why do we need an extremely well-off, or most likely the Brahmin woman? Okay, so why do we need to talk about sexuality? Why representation of sexuality is always exclusive from caste? Okay, so does that mean that certain caste people do not have sexuality, or is queerness is an aspect of caste, like it comes only with the question of say very dominant caste perspective and all. So these are various questions. Okay, so I'm not going to delve more on that, but I'm going to stick to my theme of why what is violence against women and what are the root causes for this. Okay, so before going to that, I'm talking about the everydayness of caste itself is a violence. Okay, is a symbolic violence. The theme Bourdieu speaks about, and Zizek also developed the idea of symbolic violence. Symbolic violence is something that is very perpetual, endemic, and not all the time erupting into the physical forms of violence. For instance, why should a person live in a country where he feels threatened by a simple question of where do you live? So that itself is a symbolic violence. So you are not allowed to live free from fear and live like any other person, as an equal citizen in the country. So caste becomes the obstruction there, okay, to live as a free citizen, right? So you would see the kind of society where, Ambedkar says that India has not entered into modernity. Okay, we talk about post-modernity, all right. We talk about post-colonialism, all right. But India cannot be modern. India also cannot be, cannot be democratic. So democracy as a form of parliamentarian government may continue to exist, and India may as well be the largest democracy in the world. But to achieve social democracy, caste is an obstruction. Caste actually may be very invisible for the privileged caste. Let me tell you, it actually will socialize to believe that humans are hierarchically organized, and violence is a very inherent part of caste system. And contempt, okay, what is untouchability? You have contempt for a fellow human being. Like philosophically looking at, there is nothing particularly very it's an abstract idea how one will be an untouchable, right? So you are socialized to believe that certain communities, certain caste groups are inferior, and certain groups have more entitlement over the resources, entitlement over various aspects of life. Okay, so cultural fabric of the society and respect, self-respect, so various other factors, okay, where the dominant caste groups derive certain kind of dominance and superiority. So caste is not a binary. Okay, you don't have something like Brahmin, Dalit binary. No, it is hierarchically organized in numerous number of castes. Okay, caste is also about OBCs. Caste is also about MBCs. Caste is also about dominant caste OBCs. Caste is also about most oppressed castes among OBCs. Caste is also about Dalits. Caste is also about Brahmins. Okay, so caste actually, plays the major part in the very cultural fabric of Indian society. Okay, anyway, Hindu community is a hegemonic community. So how these castes are organized also in such a way that there are certain dominant caste groups who also act as, gatekeepers of caste system, where they neither let the oppressed or the, subordinate caste groups to escape the community totally, because, or, give an equal status. So that is the very contradictory. So you neither can escape from the caste system entirely. You have to be there inside for the reason, one is to keep the larger population, Hindu community, to continue as a hegemonic community. And secondly, how else will you access free labor or cheap labor? So will you be able to buy in another country a person who for meager amounts enters into manhole and, may die anytime. Okay, will you be able to buy such a person's life so easily? So therefore, caste is also, there are also torchbearers, gatekeepers who do not let caste die. Okay, so in this kind of system, we may talk about modernity. We may be modern for the reason that the kind of dresses we wear, the kind of language we speak, because it's English. Okay, we have received it from the colonial regime, and then we started speaking better than many other countries. So that way we are modern, all right. Okay, but we are not really modern because the pre-modern concept of caste is intact. Okay, the moment you ask my name, it is caste. The moment I ask your name is also caste. In the sense, even the dominant caste is carrying the caste. Okay, so I went to watch a movie called, Badai Ho. Badai, something like that. Okay, so it is about the sexuality of an old age woman, I felt. But the thing is, it has to be Kaushik's. It has to be, it cannot be something else. So I see caste in the film that is talking about sexuality. I see caste in the film which is discussing the lesbian love. Okay, you see love, I see caste, right? Just as you see lesbianism in the movie Fire, but Bal Thackeray had seen, you used Lakshmi, you used the terms like Sita and Radha. Why not it is Shabana? That was his major question during the time. So similarly, why not it is another woman who is from a lower class society, lower caste society? Okay, so these are the major questions that we see in terms of films. Like, I'm just taking the references from the films. So with the caste system, you also have so therefore we are actually not modern, we are still pre-modern. Okay, we are still pre-modern because we so easily say my name is Tiwari. Okay, you can so easily say my name is Dwivedi, but I don't see caste anywhere. Okay, you can still say that I don't see caste anywhere. I'm not like trying to hurt anyone's sentiments. Suppose if you have that name, you will carry it. Okay, but whether you carry it or not, you can think about it at the end of my discussion. So parallel to caste system, there is something very important structure, very parallel and has a very mutual symbiotic relationship with caste, is always neglected, not only by the torchbearers of caste system, but at times also by those who want to break caste system, annihilate caste. That is the problematic situation that we landed in right now, is that parallel system is patriarchy. Okay, so try to imagine, without patriarchy, can you perpetuate caste? Okay, so the caste endogamous marriage that you look at, okay, this is majorly, I mean, marriage, if you ask any person, okay, why there is an institute of marriage? Because of the patriarchy, because of heterosexism. But marriage in India is also there, not only because of patriarchy and heterosexism, but also for the perpetuation of caste. Okay, so therefore, we not only marry, but we also marry caste endogamously. We not simply marry. See, if marriage is for reproduction and also to, also for the husband to kind of, exploit your labor, body, sexuality, it should be any woman, any man. No, it has to be between the people from the same caste. So patriarchy is a very important component of caste system and vice versa. Okay, so caste also is, the result of, or at times, supportive to this kind of patriarchy. So we talk about violence against, women. So I want to talk about, like, to begin with, violence can be, for many psychologists, it would be simply an aberration, right? Aberration of psychology. But for me, I mean, the kind of perspective I'm talking about is I am going to give the structures, the social structures that are inherently violent, inherently unleash violence against women. Okay, so to begin with, violence against all women is common. Okay, the forms, manifestations of such violence, and at times the levels, at times the spaces are different. Okay, but violence is there against all women. For instance, say, look at first, let us come from hierarchically from the dominant caste women. So largely Brahmins, anecdotally used as sati as the larger form of violence against them. Why there was sati? For the perpetuation of caste. Once the husband dies, the woman is left alone, and her sexual purity cannot be monitored by anyone because the head of the family has gone. So it becomes very difficult to guard her, secure her from being sexually accessed by subordinate caste men. Okay, anybody, subordinate caste, like it could be OBC, it could be Dalit, it could be anyone. So in order to do away with this kind of kind of leakages in caste system, kill the woman. Okay, so she was immolated, burnt alive on the pyre of her husband. Okay, so then comes the pertinent question of rape. Okay, so the contemporary question of violence against women was largely rape. Okay, so we have witnessed recently, like in the recent past, Nirbhaya, which led to social movements. And then we also had witnessed Disha, the Hyderabad based case, which was more recent, which happened at the end of 2019. Okay, so rape cannot be discussed without discussing caste again. Okay, so women are raped in families, women are raped in very sensitive areas of by army or various places where women are raped. Okay, so why women are raped? Women are raped in family. So okay, we have witnessed Mathura, we have witnessed a case like Disha, case like Nirbhaya, but will we ever witness, like maybe in future, because you are all young people who are going to change the world, will we ever witness a case of a woman who has been supported by masses of India when she has been raped by her husband? Okay, when she was raped by her husband. At least for now, we don't have an example of that kind. Okay, so children are raped, women are raped within the families, but that will not become a popular, important, significant case. For instance, before Disha happened, a few years before Disha happened, okay, no, sorry, not few years, few months before Disha happened, a woman in Kerala was starved to death by her in-laws. Okay, so you don't see the same outrage as Nirbhaya. So if Nirbhaya has gone through, like, we know the horrific violence involved in it. Starving a person is an international crime against human rights. But you do not see that same kind of outrage because, the Indian middle classes or dominant caste do not want to protest marriage. Because, you tell your children that don't go out because Nirbhaya has happened. Would you say don't get married because women are dying in marriages? You don't say it. Okay, so therefore, even violence against women in the families in forms of like dowry violence, domestic violence, is also a caste violence, is also a kind of caste violence. Okay, so then comes the question of what happens to Dalit women. Okay, so caste is like rape is very much constituted within caste. Okay, very much constituted within caste. How is it constituted within caste? So the rape of a woman who belong to, say, Dalit community is almost normalized. Okay, so suppose we might have very good reporters today, very progressive reporters. If you report a news like a sex worker has been raped, a beggar woman has been raped, a homeless woman on the night has been raped, you may not find the same kind of outrage and the shock of the nation, again, the middle classes of the country, because precisely this is normalized rape, the rape that is normalized. Okay, one. And secondly, the second important point I'm going to talk about is that the beggar, the sex worker, or the homeless may probably a Dalit woman only, because caste is also one aspect of caste is class. Okay, caste lays foundation to class, but caste is not entirely class. That is the interesting part. Okay, so you cannot say caste and class are totally separate groups. No, they have a connection, but caste is part of cultural realm, part of religion, part of also class. Okay, so when Dalit women are raped, so it's such a casual sexual access that the dominant caste men have when she goes to toil in agricultural field or in construction site. So in construction site, the dominant caste casually accesses her sexuality, body, labor, okay, and also abuses her if she is breastfeeding the child. But on the other hand, motherhood is glorified only for certain women, not all women. You might have seen, at least in some filmic representations, that the landlord comes and kicks the woman with his leg, saying that how long will you feed your child? But would you do that to a dominant caste woman? Because in Brahminical society, for the Brahminical caste, okay, motherhood is glorified. Mother will not be disturbed from anything but to feed the child and bring up the child and make sure that the child, enters into a caste endogamous marriage. So all these things are the responsibilities of mother. Okay, so it's so casually accessed. So one is that rape is constituted within caste, and then caste is part and parcel of the religion. Okay, many people get offended when we say it is religion, because you may want to separate religion and see, okay, I believe in Rama, I believe in Krishna, so what kind of questions you may. So you're also upholder of that hierarchy, because hierarchy in this community is not simply the cultural part of the community, but also doctrinal part of the community. So the moment it becomes the doctrinal part, there is more legitimacy to it. And it is also culture, it is also part of cultural realm that people are socialized to believe that women are Dalits are inferior, or women have to be controlled, women have to be accessed. So the religious example I want to give, if you go to Marathwada, okay, if you go to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, so large parts of South India is full of this custom called Jogini system. Okay, Jogini system. I tell you, even today, if you go to Solapur, around Solapur, there are many villages. At least one village is dedicating one person on the day that you visit. On that very day you visit, right? So the women, the Jogini system is that the lower caste girl is dedicated or married off to the deity of Yellamma. Okay, to the deity of Yellamma. And then onwards, she is sexually exploited. She is sexually used. She becomes a sex slave. It is not sex work because she is not paid. It is not an autonomous sex work. She's not paid. She becomes a slave. Okay, so she becomes a sex slave, and then she also depends on begging for her livelihoods. Okay, and this is done religious, as part of a religious ritual. So here is a community that is very problematic, because the religion, the caste system, hierarchies, patriarchy are all one, and and not separated entities. These are all intertwined groups. Okay, intertwined factors. So can you kill caste without killing patriarchy? No. Can you kill patriarchy without killing caste? No. Can you actually be free from the religiosity without fighting caste? So here is a community which is, caste is synonymous with community and vice versa. Okay, so therefore, a question as simple as, what God you believe in, or where do you live, what your name is very threatening to certain groups of people. And whereas for certain people, this is the very privilege which makes them feel that there is a castelessness around them. Okay, so now you can see, without fighting caste, can you fight rape? Because rape is constituted within the caste. So a landlord will so easily rape a woman. Okay, will so easily access her sexuality. Another group of dominant caste men so easily, through the temple, to a ritual, get access to the sexuality of a Dalit woman, right? So in the name of Jogini. So you can also understand that the reform has happened with the Devdasi system, not happened. It has not touched the Jogini system. So it is still intact. Okay, so the rape doesn't happen only as in case it happened in Nirbhaya, it happened in case of Disha, but it may also happen in terms of the religious accessibility, the workplace accessibility, who becomes accessible. So I just want to read out one small part, very small part. I'm not even reading out, I'm just quoting. Okay, the International Dalit Solidarity Network states 21 Dalit women are raped each week. Okay, so where are the stories of these 21 women who are raped each week, every week, when I have only heard of Nirbhaya and Disha for the past, decade. Okay, in the past decade. So which means also the kind of responses the middle classes or the dominant caste of this country are giving are very strange, because Nirbhaya only responding to Nirbhaya and Disha and not to these 21 cases, 21 cases each week, also tells us that it is a selective outrage. It also denotes that these are the women who should not get raped in this way. Okay, and also tells us that these women, these 21 women a week may get raped, and it is the norm of our society, so we can't do anything about it. Okay, so that's what that is the kind of role, very pertinent role caste plays in terms of sexual violence against women, rape or sexual violence against women. I just read only rape. Okay, you can also have the numbers of how many women are raped and lynched and paraded naked and raped. Okay, raped in public, right? Raped, gang raped. So these are all different kinds of data. Again, data of the exclusive caste groups is also very difficult to get in India. Okay, these are very few number of groups who are working on that. So therefore, without addressing caste, it is very difficult to address one, sexual violence, also sexualities in India. So how do we address the queer sexuality? There are many Dalit women who are lesbians, Dalit men who are gay men, and Dalit trans women again. Okay, that's another question that I would like to answer more, or discuss more when I'm answering my questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here with us. It was very, very thought-provoking and very enlightening. And it's very true that Brahmanical patriarchy is so entrenched in our society today that a lot of people are just conditioned in a way that they're not able to look beyond Brahmanical patriarchy when they're looking or interacting with other people. There was one time where a driver came and introduced to me himself as Pandeji Hum Brahman. That was his only introduction to me. So it is very true that these systems of class, caste, and gender, even though they're presenting as social identities for us, they're also very, very intertwined and influence our day-to-day lives, even our decisions in our career and life in many cases. So now we move on to the last speaker for this evening, last but definitely not the least, Dhanya Rajendran. Dhanya Rajendran is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the News Minute and has over 17 years of journalistic experience in South Asia, including with Times Now and the New Indian Express. Dhanya Rajendran addresses head-on issues related to the portrayal of women in news coverage and the online verbal, physical, and sexual assault that female journalists face and even continue to face till date. An award-winning journalist, Dhanya Rajendran is a graduate of Asian College of Journalism, and with the News Minute, she focuses on journalistic coverage of the southern states. Over to you, Dhanya Rajendran.
This happens all the time on every Zoom call I have been. Then I start talking and I realize I have not been unmuted. It was very enlightening to listen to Saujanya. In fact, I've actually not met her in real life, read her pieces both on the News Minute and other places. So it is nice to meet her in real life, at least like this. So the topic that I have been given is basically representation of women in digital media. I'm not very sure whether the organizers meant that I should be speaking about how women are represented by the digital media when they cover them. But I don't want to restrict myself to only that. So I want to first speak about representation of women in digital media by focusing on whether digital media has enough women journalists, whether we have enough people in editorial positions. So I've been a journalist for almost 2 decades now, and I've seen that in the last decade at least, more and more women have started becoming journalists. This is true across all mediums, which is print, digital, and of course, television. Television, I think, has more women than any of the other mediums. But the problem is that there are two issues here. One is that most of these women, like me, they are from upper caste families, and they are mainly from, I mean, I'm not from a city, but many of them are from cities, but I think that's also changing now. But the caste equation is not changing much, despite many people trying to hire, or maybe they are not making enough efforts. I don't know, but that situation has not changed, or people do not have faith in the media that they want to join it at all. Like sometimes when I ask really dedicated writers whether they want to join, they just don't want to join the media anymore. They would write, but they will do other stuff. They don't want to be journalists. So there are definitely more women in the media space. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But is it just enough that you have women in the media space and you don't have women who are leaders, who are in editorial positions where they can actually decide how a channel, a digital media house, or a newspaper functions? Now, please understand that I'm not coming from a thought process where I think that everything is hunky-dory if a woman is an editor. For example, we have seen television channels which have women editors at the helm, covering, for example, the Sushant Singh Rajput case in the most abominable manner. So having a woman editor is not the solution for every problem, but it is important. It is important that we have more and more women in editorial leadership positions. In that, if you see, I think digital media in India is doing far better than print or television. And I'm not, yes, let's not take names because we are being friendly here, Harish. So the point is that digital media, I think, has been much better in this regard because we have many organizations started by women. A few examples I can take is She the People, which is run out of Bombay. There's Suno India, a wonderful podcast company run by Padma Priya. She's out of Hyderabad. Then there is Faye D'Souza, Barkhada. These are all people who are in television who came to digital. There's News Meter, which has got a woman editor. It functions in Hyderabad. There's Khabar Lehriya. Khabar Lehriya is a wonderful publication that has got Dalit women. Supriya Sharma heads the reporting in Scroll. So if you look at, I mean, my organization, the News Minute, has almost 70% women. I don't know if it's by design, but I realized over the years that men with more than 4 or 5 years experience never apply to the News Minute. People are starting out, they always apply, but men who are more than 4 or 5, they don't want to apply because maybe they know that it's just too many women editors around. I don't know what the fear is, but nobody applies. So if you look at that way, there is enough evidence to show that digital media in India, English digital media in India, is doing much better. We have lots of women editors. We have women who have started organizations, who are heading organizations, and you can see the difference in the kind of work they do. It's very obvious, right? Digital media in India is much more braver. That's also because of its size. I'm not just saying that all these journalists will be as brave or they'll be allowed to be as brave if they're working in TV or print, because there are many other issues which TV or print face, like you need advertisements from the government, which cannot afford you to be brave all the time. Digital doesn't have that problem. We are not dependent on the government for advertisements, so we can be as brave as we want, and I hope it continues like that. So how do we make sure that there are more women in the media and that the women in the media also become leaders? That's for every individual organization to focus on. Organizations have to realize, especially TV channels, you take examples of any TV channel, regional, English, Hindi, there are very few women editors in TV channels. So the organization has to make an effort that they have powerful women editors, or we will just see the same men doing it again and again. They will just jump channels and they will just be doing the same rot. Now, when I talk about women, as I said in the beginning, I'm still only talking about mostly upper class women, right? We have not even reached a position where we have a Dalit woman as an editor. There are Dalit women who, of course, run portals now. Like, I'm not sure who the editors of Vellivada are, but recently Dalit Camera reporting has been taken over by a woman. So there are examples, but we definitely need to do much more in that. And when we come to the LGBTQ community, I really don't think we have given enough representation for people from the community, either in coverage, and that's becoming better, or in making sure that they join as journalists. So these are things that we have to be mindful of. I'm saying digital media does much better, but we can do much more. Now, the next question is, how does digital media represent women? Now, I remember when I was in print and later in television, we used to write things like, I have personally not written because I never covered crime, but I've read it all the time. For example, when a woman is killed by a man, the headline in most of the newspapers we read the next day, jilted lover kills woman, right? So 50% of the crime you have justified because he's a jilted lover, poor man, he has been left by this woman, and so he had to murder her. Now, that's the kind of language which media was using about women for many, many years, and it went uncontested, like nobody was questioning it. Or at least we do not have the platforms right now, like our social media accounts or even digital media websites, to actually question the kind of language which the media was using about women. But in the last few years, we have seen very strong writing, especially from digital media, which has turned the gaze inwards, right? Like you have a news laundry, which only does, I think the Hindi word is some dhulai of media. So they have turned the gaze completely inwards, right? They have questioned media at every stage. And there are so many people like Feminism in India, She the People, they have focused on language, which is problematic, on representation, which is problematic. And that has, I believe at least, that it's made a huge difference and it's made the media change. Hold on, excuse me. So I think with the advent of digital media and this process of forcing other media houses to look inwards, a lot of things have definitely changed. But the problem is that these changes are also largely restricted to English medium. If you look at regional or if you look at Hindi, I'm not counting Hindi as regional here because it's too vast and there are too many publications. So I'm always saying regional and Hindi, except for a few languages, perhaps Malayalam and Tamil. Of course, I don't know what Punjabi or Marathi does. I know only the South Indian languages, but here also I think when it comes to gender, Malayalam and Tamil may be a little better, but even the words that they use, for example, in Malayalam, the word for rape, in Tamil, the word for rape, the coverage that they do, it's extremely patriarchal even now. So I sometimes think it's because there's not enough digital media in these regional languages to question what they do. So we really need digital media to balance what the mainstream media is doing, which we are seeing in English, but we don't see in languages. And the point that Saujanya was making, that's very important. Do we write about all women? Now, we may fill our newsrooms with women. We may be using the correct language around women, but do we write about all women? To be very truthful, I run an organization with a lot of women. We want to focus on women issues. But even we end up covering a lot of city-based stories about middle class, upper class people. One, because it is easier to access that information for us. And second, a lot of the other things just fall off our radar. Like we don't even know when it's happening. And what Saujanya says is very, very true, that it's very difficult for outrage cycles. I call them outrage cycles. These outrage cycles almost never start when the victim is from a village. The stories are as gory as what would be Disha's or Nirbhaya's story. For example, there was this, I'm using her name because we have got written permission from the family to use her name. Her name is Nandini. She was killed in a district in Tamil Nadu from a Dalit family. She was thrown into a well. The case has not progressed. For a long time, people from Tamil Nadu were trying to, trend that hashtag, a lot of people, but it never caught the national attention. So why do some crimes catch national attention? Some do. I have never figured that out as a journalist, but I think that, as Saujanya pointed out, one big reason is that what is the caste location or the class location of that person? That really matters. So as media houses, do we write a lot about all kinds of women? I don't think so. We have a lot more to do. We have to understand that if we are representing, if we are writing about issues of women, we have to write about all kinds of women and people from other communities. I was recently reading a book in which it's called Hood Feminism, in which the author explains that when you are talking about feminism, it's not enough that you talk about bigotry or patriarchy. I mean, that's when I realized that even a lot of our coverage is very reaction based. Like if some political leader say something bigoted or some movie has a bigoted dialogue, everyone's behind it, right? So an author actually says that if you're a real feminist and you want to be speaking about feminism, then you have to speak about women in education, women in health, women in jobs. These are dialogues, these are conversations that you consistently need to have. So are we, even the digital media, which I think does better in India, Are we consistently talking about women and education, women and health, women and jobs, about parity in pay? I'm not sure. I mean, I do know that there is more focus on it now, but whether it's sustained and whether we can do more, these are questions that every organization and every journalist needs to ask themselves. I would like to end by saying that a few years ago, I don't think I even knew the word called manel, right? Today, if you see anyone tweeting the invite of an event which is only talking heads of men, all of us jump and say, what is this manel? Didn't you find an expert? That's another thing which I think still plagues the media, including digital media. In fact, it was only 2-3 weeks ago that I sent a note to my colleagues in Tamil Nadu, as I realized that even we were taking, when it came to politics and Rajinikanth is joining politics, etc., we were taking men. We were always taking the quotes of men who are political commentators. It's so ingrained in us, right? That if we want to speak about politics, economics, or finance, stuff like that, we turn to men. If we want to talk about violence against women, certain laws for women, we immediately go to women, because women know only stuff about women. They don't know about economics or politics. If we go to someone in the LGBTQ community only when something has happened in that community and we want to address it. Why? Don't they know about politics or economics? So there, I think when I say we, I include myself. I'm saying that we do not apply our minds and think that we are being biased, that these are patriarchal norms that we've been following for so many years. We have to really tell ourselves each time. So what we did is we made a whole list of numbers from people in Tamil Nadu, and we said, we will not carry one story without ensuring that there's a woman political commentator. So, but I'm saying that even though we made that effort 2 weeks ago, 2 months down the line, we'll again forget. Because it's just easy to call a man, and we know so many of these men political commentators, right? The thing is, we have to keep telling ourselves. We have to keep learning and unlearning, and that's the only solution ahead for all of us in any topic possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhanya. It was really, really enlightening, and it was much needed. Digital media is doing its work, but there's a lot more to do. And also, one more thing is that when women actually are asked certain questions, it's also this baggage that women are having that, okay, should I tell it or should I not tell it? Even that is also shutting them up absolutely, which is another reason we have to pave the way for women and other communities to speak up more freely and be as free as they can, and they could just simply put out their views where they don't have to filter it.
Yeah, 30 seconds I'll take. What you said is true. Many times when we approach women, they don't want to talk because if their quote is given somewhere and then it becomes viral, then they're going to be abused by tons of fans of either political parties or actors. So we also face that a lot where women like, I don't want to talk about this controversial thing.
Absolutely. So this is, and sometimes even people choose to be apolitical, that we don't want to talk about it. And where end of the day, it has to be spoken about. Thank you so much for this talk, Dhanya. So over to Neha for the panel discussion and the Q&A. And I request the audience to continue to keep pouring in the questions in the chat box, and those will be addressed soon.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. I'm Neha. I am Program Head Education at Youngistan Foundation. We are going to start the panel discussion. And I'd like to start with Dr. Saujanya. Thank you so much for an amazing packed 15 minutes, Dr. Saujanya. A lot to unpack, I think, for all of us, for the entire audience. And one of my questions was to do with, which I think you addressed, was to do with the sort of systemic violence faced by the Dalit woman and how it is qualitatively different from that faced by non-Dalit women. And it's important to be able to accept that and address that. And I was reminded of these Facebook conversations on a friend's timeline where a lot of feminists, this conversation ensued on why the caste identity post the Hathras case. Why are you discussing her caste identity? And these became really heated discussions, and it was somehow seen as derailing the feminist movement. When one was doing so. So jumping from this sort of and this is between women who identify as feminists. And of course, then one has only to look at their names, Dr. Saujanya, as you said, and these are women from the dominant caste. Dr. Saujanya, you've written about the so from here, I want to sort of go now to how the feminist movement, the dominant caste feminist movement, and the Dalit feminist movement, how we are tackling gender-based violence and caste-based gender violence. And you've written about this, and you've written about the fault lines that persist, between the dominant caste feminist discourse and the Dalit movement and its discourse. And what is ignored, like you say in what you've written, is that Dalit women's oppression is, at the intersection of caste and gender. Be it then, the Khairlanji or the Hathras brutalizations. I have been wondering, and I think a lot of us have been, and I'm sure our audience will benefit from this also. How do we even begin to rethink, both the feminist as well as the Dalit discourses, sort of moving away from the either or paradigm? That it's either, and like you already said, that patriarchy and caste system are interdependent and perpetuating each other. So how do we sort of, even within the feminist and Dalit feminist discourse, sort of move away from that either or paradigm, while ensuring, and over here I'm borrowing from Professor Gopal Guru's, I'm borrowing from him, while ensuring that the Dalit woman continues to talk differently, while ensuring that the Dalit woman's agency is not compromised in any way. So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Okay, you actually asked very, larger question. I would begin with say, while Hathras, I have also some questions to Dhanya about, Hathras incident and its reportage. Okay, largely where we depended on YouTube, where the progressive, media people are telecasting all that, but we really don't have much of the mainstream representation of this case. To start with, say, why only Valmiki's group? The Valmiki's group started the protests in Hathras case. Yeah, and yes, I don't want to say that feminists are totally blind to totally overlooking the violence or rape against women or Dalit women. I don't want to say that, because say the question here is, it is happening, say something like Mathura is also a lower caste woman, like is a tribal woman. Okay, so something like Bhavri Devi's case, which was taken up by the mainstream feminists, the so-called the Savarna feminists, are also lower caste groups. But the problem is that these issues, firstly, they are not critically engaging with why it happened. Is the reason is not simply the public violence against women, but caste. Okay, so why Bhavri Devi was raped, and the judge actually pronounced as a judgment that here is a country, we believe in untouchability. And I do not believe a dominant caste man might have touched a Dalit woman and raped. So he should either say the rape didn't happen, but caste is so true. Okay, or caste is not so true in India, but rape has happened. Okay, so it's that kind of a situation he put into. So why the judge said Mathura is habituated to sexual intercourse, so hence is raped, and rape is not called raped. This is said in a context of caste. It is not said in the free space. It is said in the context of a tribal woman Okay, tribal women who are believed to be the mainstream understanding of tribal women. Tribal women are, sexually promiscuous. They have so many marriages. They are easily accessed by the mainstream society. So these are the prejudices which shaped the judgment in case of Mathura. Okay, so similarly, the so true feudal society, the judge might have as well come from that feudal society where he strongly believes that untouchability is so not only so true, and it is also legitimate. So therefore, rape might not have happened. So the problem is that when the women's groups, the Savarna women's groups, have not problematized caste in the context of rape is one problem. And second is, we heard Mathura, all right. We heard Bhavri Devi, all right. We heard, but what about these 21 women who are raped every week? We are not hearing those cases. Okay, not only that, I also want to take it to another end. If you are talking about, say, again, media representation of Disha or, Nirbhaya, do we really want to know that she went out only at 9 o'clock and not beyond? So what if she has gone out at 12 o'clock? What if she has not gone to shop, but has gone to a pub or on a date, on a blind date? So is the nation going to get shocked of Nirbhaya's case, despite she has gone, say, on a date or on something else, or went in the middle of the night, or her character is represented in a different way in the media? It's really least likely to believe that, we would get support from, say, for a woman who is a sex worker, for a woman who is, for a Dalit. See, I would give you an example. When Disha's protests were happening, I was in the middle of the protests. Okay, so a woman, I mean, these are all natural leaders. Seriously, I'm the live witness of this movement, where you do not have any particular leader came to protest. It was such natural leadership of women who are housewives, women who are living around this area. They have come out and started shouting slogans in front of the police station. So one woman shouted saying that she is not this, there is a tribal location in that area. Okay, so she is not a woman coming from that Lambada tribe to get raped and thrown on the road. Okay, so she said it very bluntly, overtly, without even thinking twice. That, so which means, is it all right that a tribal woman who is walking on in the middle of the night, maybe beggary or sex work or something else, got raped and lynched, killed? So the thing is, we are already socialized in such a way to believe that rape against some women is the norm. And the thing is, this socialization is like language. If you know Hindi, you can't forget Hindi, and I can start speaking about you in Hindi, and you may pretend you have not understood, but you cannot not understand. Okay, socialization is something like that. It takes so much effort to undo this. Okay, it takes so much of effort to what we have learned. So the socialization is, see, who might have told her that there are some women who can get raped? Nobody might have overtly told. But say, for instance, media. Okay, when media is talking about women, there is always some kind of prefixes to these women: good women, bad women. The woman who is innocent victim is very common. Okay, the innocent victim is a victim. So victim is an innocent victim. This victimhood actually is the connotation of, say, sexual purity. And sexual purity, firstly, is the very prerequisite to get the attention of the nation. Okay, sexual purity should be intact, firstly. And secondly, the sexual purity, again, as Sharmila Rege says, sexual purity is only inherently there for those who are caste pure. Okay, for those who are caste pure. So the term, like, in Telugu they use manabhanga. Okay, mana is respect, honor. Okay, so that honor is not pre-existed within these communities. So therefore, it is easy to attribute one is sexually impure. Okay, a Dalit woman is sexually impure. Also, you are seeing that there are large number of sex workers who are also Dalits, who are Dalit women. Okay, and this is the caste system where there is a caste name called Kalavantulu in both Telangana and Andhra. This is an oppressed OBC caste. Okay, this is not even Dalit, not an untouchable caste. It's an OBC caste, and their caste-based profession is sex work. concubinage, actually not sex work. Okay, sex work is, I have, I got kind of socialized to use that sex work as a term, but they are actually religious prostitutes. They are supposed to do erotic dances for all male audience who are dominant caste men, and otherwise they have to act as concubines. They get married, but their sons and husbands will have to pimp them, and these women have to be mandatorily available to the dominant caste men in villages, and as well as in Hyderabad, there are a lot of these groups in the cities. Okay, so therefore, suppose if you say someone from, this is also an abusive word. Okay, the caste is an abusive word. So this particular caste is used when a woman is slut. You want to say the woman is slut, you actually use this caste name. So suppose if this caste name you say got raped, they will say a slut got raped. Okay, and a slut should get raped. Also the patriarchal nature of the society, right? So the very nature of the society, the moment you say pure victim, sexually pure victim, you're actually saying someone else should get raped. Okay, that language, that socialization, these are originated from caste system, but they are now very much part of our cultural fabric. Okay, so that's where it becomes very tough and difficult to really get justice for all women.
Thank you, Dr. Saujanya. I think a lot for all of us to sort of mull over and think about. Rutrika, will you go next?
Yeah. So moving further, we have a question for Danya Rajendran. One of the most common questions relates to social media platforms not being responsible enough to prevent or address abuse and even threats to the lives of female journalists. So what can the average consumer of social media practically do to demand this of social media platforms?
I think social media platforms are very much aware of the demands. I mean, it's been so many years and people have been asking for more stringent mechanism where people can be, their Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts can be blocked, but they don't want to act more than what they're doing now. I mean, things have definitely improved from what they were at least 3-4 years ago, but I don't think they want to do beyond this. And most times the social media companies, they don't even cooperate with the police. Like I have given a complaint once, the Twitter, just because I knew people in Twitter, I could get the IP addresses. But the cops said the IP address is not enough because these guys had all deleted their accounts by then. So you need the login and log out time of each ID for the cop to actually file a charge sheet. The Twitter authorities never replied to that mail, and eventually no charge sheet was filed in that case. So the point is they do not cooperate with investigators. They only do this much. I mean, they may block if they feel that something is abusive or it amounts to harassment. That is very subjective. So I think as a society, especially as women, we have to do 2 or 3 things. One is that we have to recognize that abuse is a problem, that social media abuse is a problem. We cannot say that, oh, it's only on Twitter, it's just a Facebook post. That's not really abuse. It is abuse. It is harassment. We have to recognize that as a problem and then work towards solving the problem. How do we solve the problem? First is, as social media users, we have to start using our accounts responsibly, block, report, mute, help other people. If there's someone on a Twitter timeline saying that I have been abused by this person, use the report button on your account every time, because we all need to be stakeholders in this and use those buttons more frequently. Be aware of the law, understand what is harassment, what is sexual harassment, what is a threat or intimidation, and if needed, go file a case. But I think beyond a point, it becomes impractical to tell women to file cases, because most women will have, especially journalists, I think most women will have to file a case a day. People are abusing every day. So that's not practical. What worked for me personally is that I have a support group. I used to be really, really upset initially, like 2 or 3 years ago. I would be a broken person when this whole like 500, 600, 800 people come on your timeline, they're abusing, they're taking screenshots. I used to get nightmares. I used to be very disturbed. And I reached out to other women who used to face the same issues. We sort of formed support groups, and that really helps. See, this kind of abuse can affect your mental health. Be aware of it. Speak about it to people, your friends, your family. I mean, it has affected my mental health to some extent. I'm someone who doesn't get, flustered very fast, but I was so flustered. So I shared that with a lot of people, and that helped me. So form your own support groups of your friends, professionals, whoever it is, and seek help.
But what is the kind of ratio that you see for, is there any separation of the kind of hate you receive because you're a woman? Like, have you seen your male journalists, or for that matter, co-founder, do they also receive the same kind of hate or criticism? Or
No,
is it
of course
because
not.
you are blessed with
No,
the title you
no,
get
of
more?
course not. I mean, being a woman, you get abused. If you're a woman journalist, you get abused more. If you're a woman journalist with an opinion in life, you get really, really abused. So that's how it works for me. I am like weighted at 3 levels. So the problem is I sort of started censoring myself on social media. I don't say things on social media anymore because I don't want the tension of 1,500 people abusing me all the time. And it impacts my family, then they're worrying about it. So sometimes when I just can't hold myself back, I give my opinion. Otherwise, I'm very non-opinionated on social media. I would rather do my work, and my work can talk for what my opinion is. I mean, I know that a lot of people will not agree with me, but from my own personal experience, I realize that it's not worth it. At least in the climate that we are in the political climate that we are in, for my own sanity, I'm doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Danya. That was actually great, because even I keep sharing something on Instagram or anything, I kind of received a lot of hate and a lot of opinions of people that you can't filter, can't deal, and exactly as you rightly said, it spoils your mental health for nothing. Like, you don't even know who's at the other end, but your mental health is screwed up. But yeah, thanks for that, Danya. Moving on, we have a question for Harish. So Harish, the Indian filmmaking culture somehow still appears to be confused towards forming a universal opinion, like how a transgender person is shown in movies as a good luck or a bad luck icon. Why do you think such folly depictions seem to work in India?
Um, I I'm I think it's first of all there is lack of education when it comes to filmmakers, when it comes to people who are in the film industry. There is more focus on voyeurism than in education. Half of them don't know they've never probably interviewed a trans person. They've never really gone and spoken to a trans person. They've only heard tales. Like, I'll tell you a very simple thing. Even for me, as when I was growing up, I used to be told if I didn't eat my food on time, my party used to come and tell me, if you don't have your food on time, I'm going to give you to a. There was a derogatory term, offensive term used for trans people. I'm going to go and give it to you. Give you to a chakka. That's what was always told to me. So I grew up even as a queer person. I grew up with. I didn't want to identify as queer simply because I didn't want because I thought that this was LGBTQ and I would be a part of trans people, and I didn't. So I was a transphobe myself. That's how that's how these thoughts get. Had I not met people, had I not interacted with people, I wouldn't have had a good opinion about trans people myself. I would have been a transphobe myself all my life had I not met people. The reason why this happens is because India is a country where we don't speak about sex. We only have a lot of sex. We don't speak about sexuality. We only practice sexuality every now and then. We don't speak about gender, but we genderize everything. What is needed right now is education. Uh, uh, there, there are consumers who like and who would, as Saujanya rightly said, who would go and watch an Arjun Reddy, who would go and watch that whatever atrocious Shahid Kapoor wala film was there in Hindi. They would go and watch the whole film, and there were a lot of people who would laugh at those jokes also. So I think we are becoming a culture of voyeurs and not connoisseurs of good cinema, and that's a big problem. And we are not educated. I mean, people think that you have to be, and it has to be like people actually told me when I speak about Margarita with a straw. People have actually told me I don't want to go and watch an arty farty film. I said, it's not arty-farty. It's an intelligent film. You can make an intelligent, funny film also with queer characters, with trans characters in it. You don't have to show trans people as how that film, there's the Hrithik Roshan film that was there, which shows us trans people going out and killing people and stuff like that, or trans people totally becoming the Akshay Kumar kind of this thing. There are variations to trans lives, and it's important to show the variety, the whole gamut of these things. The reason why they don't show is because they don't know. And the reason why they don't know is because they don't want to know. Okay. There's a lack of interest in knowing. They just want to write a script that will get more eyeballs, more voyeurism, a few jatkas, and some trans people coming and guiding things. And they will never take a trans person to play a trans character. It always has to be a cis man, not even a cis woman. Okay, it has to be a cis man who would play a trans character. So I think all of this, the lack of intent, the content is horrible because of the lack of intent.
Thank you. Thanks, Harish, for that. We'd like to move forward with our other panel.
All right, Rutrika, I'll go next.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Sachit, we have a question for you. And firstly, Sachit, thank you so much for the Mother of the Nation. I have to put that out there. And also, in responding to what you said about, having to catch up on a lot of reading, I have maintained throughout that everyone should get a crash course in the humanities. It is so essential. So moving on to something that, we just thought we'd sort of ask you, Sachit. As a part of the Why Loiter movement, and we also saw the poster, which you were a part of in Mumbai, a movement that sort of actively seeks to sort of assert women's right to occupy public spaces. And you dressed as a woman and performed by perform, I mean it in the Judith Butler sense, like you did on the streets of Mumbai. So Sachit, and I know you also use the term artivist. How do you negotiate these overlapping identities of, artist, activist, and also a feminist ally, an ally to the feminist movement? And I mean, if you could just shed some light on that in the sense of in an autobiographical sense, and also what does it mean to be, and how do you become an authentic ally to the movement, where you engage meaningfully with the politics of gender, but without appropriating women's voices, the voices of the sexual minorities, without appropriating their voices and their spaces. So,
Thank you. Very pertinent questions. And I really hope I'm capable of answering. But I think essentially what I could speak, like, since you said, since my personal journey, I could only speak about how that has been working for me. Because like, even when I go into those words of art, what is art, being an artist or being an activist, I somewhere I cannot help but deconstruct them as kind of notions put on by a capitalist society. So till a lot of years, I would also resent the word artist, because it would be a kind of, oh, up to artist ho, you don't care about money, you don't care about, oh, you are the activist types, So kind of like trying to always grudge those kind of perspectives. But I think the kind of journey more it has been with the forms, because I think like even to like a fidelity of a form, whether it is film or theater or editing or writing a play or making a music video or performing on street, So I don't see them like I would see everything as a kind of content at some level, you know, and with social media and at the digital level, like everything, like, you know, whatever you're liking, sharing, you know, at some level, there is a kind of engagement, and in an economy of like attention deficit, like every engagement has its own weight. So it can be kind of grappling, a lot of grappling issues to look at, but so I somewhere felt that this documentary and fiction, when we break the hegemony between that, like, you know, because even as purely as form, like when we are seeing uh, documentaries which are constructed like fiction and fictional films which achieve the kind of naturalism that documentaries have. So I always found those intermingling of things really exciting, and personally, it took me a little bit of waking up to the world to kind of be aware of, you know, of your caste privilege and gender privilege, because with a name like you know, Satchit Puranik, it almost feels like, you know, I'm supposed to represent something else, and it was so thoughtful when Saujanya said that, you know, when we ask these things like, what is your name, you know, these very seemingly harmless questions are indicators of so many things. So that kind of to firstly be aware of one's privileges, and to acknowledge that you know, it is becomes even more important for you then to take a stand, because then, like, if you are not risking it, like, and actually I asked this question to a filmmaker friend of mine, Mr. Rakesh Sharma, who's made the amazing, like, compelling post study on the Gujarat aftermath. And with all the kind of courageous work, I would always ask him that, you know, don't you fear that you will be taking a walk and, you know, somebody will point a gun at you and kill you, because that's the only kind of real fear, I think, which is keeping us not from being on the streets right now, you know, not with the farmers probably or whatever. So and he said that, you know, as a cisgendered upper caste, a male, Brahmin male in India, if I'm not going to take that risk and make that film, who would? So yeah, and I really feel that, like, if you're making, if like another problem is when whatever you do becomes a profession. So then again, the capitalist construct, and, you know, you are asked to make certain kind of content, and then, if, like, you know, you will be given an item number at some point to edit, or you will be asked to write a scene, you know, which will have some kind of sexist undertones or casteist undertones. So, like, how do you negotiate with these worlds and, you know, really make your own content? So I think it's like we have, like, the advantage that we have, you know, as people belonging to this generation. And I'm really actually very hopeful after this, because, you know, I've never had an interaction with so many 19-year-olds today, and, you know, the kind of the questions that they are asking, and the kind of concerns, that the fact that they are doing this, it really gives me a lot of hope, and I feel that kind of this gestalt of mixing the forms would really go ahead a lot of ways, because after this pandemic, we need to realize that, you know, traditional forms of protests are not going to work. Traditional forms of making art, traditional models, the economies of them, everything has to be relooked at. So yeah, and speaking about the cross-dressing bit, so it started off as a whim first, when I was not, because I loved the book so much while later, and I was gifting it to all my friends, and then they started doing it. Neha and Devina, they started hanging in a park, and I said, I'd love to join, you know, at a chai ki tapri and everything, and they said, but that would defeat the purpose, you know. So I kind of saw the point in that, but I said that, what if I cross-dress and come? Because, you know, that would be like an interesting invisible theater exercise for me, and at the same time, like, you know, it would be this idea of clothing as protest or clothing as performance, in public spaces. So yeah, with that, the campaign of Walk Like a Woman started, and then not just Bombay, but wherever the play went, we went to Bareilly, Pune, a couple of other cities. In all those cities, also I would be cross-dressing, and the kind of show, the post-dinner loitering after the show, would always be in costume. And yeah, so it was a very, very kind of liberating experience. At the same time, you could also feel like the sense of danger that you were safer when you were hanging with the women colleagues of the play, because if you're not even falling into the conventional kind of mode of a moonlighting cross-dresser and the kind of alternate gendered people we are used to seeing in cities like Bombay, So it kind of, there is this what is up with you kind of attitude that you see in people. So yeah, with this public spaces and personal stories, so yeah, documentary theater and forms like this, like, all the interesting talk on caste representation, gender representation, like how is it that with such a rich variety of human beings all across our country, like, we are not using them, their stories, their struggles, their faces, and like, why aren't we like really, like with digital technology really radicalizing things? So much should be happening, but the money is only being put into, a certain kind of films. And then passes the question that, country will get the film it deserves. So it's like passing the buck from everyone that the people want this. But yeah, it's a bit of an endless rant, but I could go on and on. But I hope I've managed to answer your question in some ways, probably.
Thank you so much, Sachit. And I think you also mentioned documentary theater. So also that gives our audience a sort of a context of the framework that you work within and how it does lend itself to sort of making the personal political and vice versa. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Ritvika?
Sorry, I was on mute again.
That's okay.
We have another question here for Danya. It's from one of our attendees. So how a false information or reporting can actually affect people, and can in any way action be taken for the consequences?
False reporting can affect people, very seriously. It can impact people in many different ways. It can affect people's lives. It can affect them mentally, financially. For example, today I've got an email from a woman we had done a story 2 weeks ago about a police case against a doctor in Kerala. So his wife has written to me today saying that the patient who made the allegation is someone who was mentally ill, and so the allegation is not correct. Can you please remove it, because it is causing a lot of stress to us. Now, I can't simply remove the story because she told me to, but I replied to her that, look, I will ask the police whether there was an FIR filed, but what happened after that? Was the patient found to be mentally ill? I told my editor, for now, remove his name in the headline. We will keep the story, but as soon as the policeman comes back to me with a fact, I will remove the story. But can I do it every time? I may not, right? And there are so many media organizations that do not, they'll be getting hundreds of emails, and there's no way that they're even interested in changing facts. Like, we've also seen recently, at least the last 2-3 years, that the media has wantedly skewed, wantedly misrepresented things. Like, for example, look at the farmers' protest. We see right in front of us what is happening. The farmers are being dubbed as all of them are Khalistani, or all of them are ultra-left. I mean, from the time we had the Kudankulam protest in Tamil Nadu, where it was, in fact, it was Manmohan Singh who first started this trend of calling protesters as those influenced by foreign entities. He called them influenced by Russians. So that's the legacy which I think the BJP has taken on and built on it much, much more, where every single protester is delegitimized, right? And the media plays a very important role in that. But I would say that as citizen, use all the laws which the Indian laws have given you, which is the penal code, the laws of defamation. Use all that, whatever is at your disposal. Use that against media houses. because that's the only way out, right? For all of us as citizens. What do you do when a media house writes a story which is blatantly false? You definitely have to take them to court. That's the only solution.
Thank you. And in how many cases does this work, Danya? You know, the case of defamation or anything for that matter. As a citizen, what I could see in my hands is defamation and RTI and PIL. But how much do you think will actually uh, these also assist a citizen?
Defamation definitely works. I can tell you hundreds of examples. I worked in Times Now for 8 years. I know how many stories have been dropped like this simply because that person put a defamation case. Like we would be on that story for like 20 days. The second the person puts a defamation case, the TV channel will just forget that story. Yesterday, the actor who's largely based out of Hyderabad, Rahul Preet, she went to court, right? And the court has asked all the news channels to apologize to her. Do you think they're going to cover anything about her from now? They will not. They will not, because defamation is one tool that, I mean, I am not someone who advocates criminal defamation at all. I'm talking about civil defamation here, which is a tool that I think citizens can use. But see, not everybody wants to go to court. Not everybody has the time or the luxury or the leisure to go to court. In those cases, the maximum that you can do now is to use your social media account. For example, the other day, there was a story from, I think, Bombay. The Times of India carried a different couple's story, different couple's picture. The names of the couple were the same. I mean, the husband had murdered someone or something, and they carried a different couple's picture. And imagine they were getting hundreds of phone calls. They put out a very strong Facebook post, and the paper had to apologize. So you can, of course, use your own social media accounts to call out the publication. That's the first thing you should do. And if that does not help, then obviously you will have to file a defamation suit, which, like I said, a lot of people may not be able to do.
Thanks, Tanya. Hope the attendees' question was answered. Thank you for that. And Danya, we have another question. It is very similar to what we have asked you previously. It is more, just adding on to that. We've spoken about bullying, abuse, and threats. But on a deeper note, how does one deal with its impact without having to avoid writing certain kind of stories or leaving the profession? Like I have heard from a lot of students who are pursuing journalism saying that journalism is not what it was right now. I guess it has changed completely because of 2 or 3 or certain idols or the mainstream media that we look up to. Because of that, we're thinking. But how does a journalist deal with the impact of the abuse while ensuring that there is gender diversity and representation in journalism?
There's no foolproof way, or there is no one way in which all journalists deal with it, right? There are many journalists. Like I have a colleague with me called Pooja Prasanna. I mean, you can see her on Twitter. She used to be with Republic. She was a South India bureau chief of Republic. She was wanting to leave her job for a long time. She couldn't, and then she is now joined me. She is very insulated. Like she writes tough opinion pieces. She does not have a problem with what people say about her. I am not a person like that. So everyone deals with things very differently. My only differentiation, and which I tell everybody in my team, is this: no matter what the abuse you get for your story, it should never impact your journalism. The minimum impact that abuse on social media has is that you tend to use social media lesser. That if people are tweeting and abusing you, you just don't use Twitter as much. But that cannot curtail you as a journalist or stop you from doing powerful stories. See, journalists have to differentiate. Journalism is not being on social media. Journalism is not what the echo chambers on social media tell you. You do your story and you just leave it there. The reactions to that can be extreme. If you cannot take those reactions, don't log on. But because those reactions will come, you cannot stop yourself from doing that story. Now, the problem here is that everyone's so tuned in all the time that the second they put out the story, they're always looking at the reactions. And then it has a downward spiral when things, when it impacts your mental health, like I said. Sometimes I tell my team, we are getting very abused today, don't look at the notifications. Because I know that some of the younger ones really get impacted. Like there was a story which we did wrongly, okay? Like it was a first, and I think the only story that we did so wrong.
We have a poor connection from Danya's end, I believe.
It was really huge, okay, the kind of abuse. So I would tell my team, don't look at it because you can get demoralized. So sometimes don't look at feedback. That's the only way out.
Danya, we just lost you there when you said, one of the stories that you covered wrong. After that, we lost you.
It was a
If you don't
PV
mind.
Sindhu story. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You're
Yeah, so
audible.
we did a long story saying that people were Googling for PV Sindhu's caste as soon as she won a medal. People were Googling for her caste, but not as many as we thought they were Googling. We were rogered the next day. We were abused so badly. And there were hundreds of articles saying the News Minute is anti-national, News Minute is a breaking India force and all that. So I told people in my team, don't look at notifications. It can be really demoralizing. So, and sometimes it can be threatening, not just demoralizing. So I think as journalists, it's good that you don't always look at feedback. We didn't operate like this 10 years ago, right? Like when I did a story when I was in Times Now against, if I cover the 2G scam today or the Tatra truck scam today, imagine the number of DMK trolls who will come on my timeline, the number of Congress trolls who will come on my timeline. If I cover a Yedurappa walking out of the assembly and make fun, I used to make fun of him those times saying, where are you, Yeddi? Where are you, Yeddi? If I tweet such stuff or if I do such stories now and I look for reactions on Twitter, all I'm going to get is abuse, right?
Yeah,
but
true.
It never stopped me from functioning as a journalist then. I'm saying it shouldn't stop me even now.
True. Thank you. That was a nice message for all the upcoming journalists.
Saujanya has written a question. Would you think twice? She has said. How do you deal with the state's repression? Saujanya, we are actually getting ready for the state's repression, which is why we have formed this, especially the digital media. See, like I explained earlier, the digital media has been more or less independent in the country. They have been braver in the country. The reason, because they are not dependent on government for anything, but things are changing rapidly. You must have all seen that the government has suddenly said that digital media comes under the Information Broadcasting Ministry. They have said that FDI is 26% limit. So a month ago, we formed this organization called DigiPub. I'm heading it currently. I mean, it's on a rotational basis. So if we have to go to court, we will against the government. But do we stop ourselves from writing against the government? No, I don't think so. Many, like if you take Scroll, Wire, they're all very brave publications who have taken on the government. So there are, of course, I'm being very truthful, Saujanya. There are some articles where we have thought, is it worth it? Should we do it now? We're also humans, right? We have these doubts. We keep thinking, like, is it worth it really? The repercussions of this article, would they be defamation? So these are the only things. Like, we have no problem calling out a policy or something the government does, only if we think that the truth we know may not be the entire truth. There could be another version of it, or it could lead to defamation, and our lawyer says, maybe you shouldn't do this. That's the only time I think when digital media especially hold themselves back. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I'm speaking for a few people that I know.
Yeah, thank you, Danya. Saujanya, hope she answered your question. If not, you can surely come back and pose another question. Moving further, we have a question to Harish again. So Harish, this question is from one of our team members that in what ways do you think that a common citizen or can organizations like us assist the transgender community to gain access to education, jobs, and a decent livelihood or an equal footing in the society?
First of all, I need to acknowledge that I don't identify as trans, but it's important to, since I'm there in this podium and I'm getting a chance to speak, it's important that I speak about my friends in the trans community as well. One of the things that is there is not just giving them opportunities. It's basically finding out whether we have educated ourselves enough. The onus of inclusion comes on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. Okay, and this is true with everything. If you are in a position where you want to involve, if it's all men's organization, and you're employing a woman, it's not the woman's responsibility to ensure that the woman learns how to behave with so many men around. It's a man's responsibility to ensure that the space is safe enough for women. So I think that is a thing. So many a times there are many such initiatives like the Kochi Metro. So many initiatives. It started with a lot of like they wanted to have trans people. They started off with a lot of things, but finally the trans people over there didn't find accommodation. So you have to have a rounded approach to the whole thing. Now, you'd say that okay, when you're speaking about trans community, you're only thinking about trans women. You're not thinking about trans men. So when you're thinking about trans, and as Saujanya said, you're not thinking about the other intersectional issues that are at play as well. So I think what we need is a holistic understanding of the issue. You have to make your workplace safe for a community before employing that community. The onus is on that. It doesn't really mean that you should not employ them. Every organization should be safe for everybody. There is a responsibility over there, but it's important. Like, well, if I was totally unaware about trans people, if I went to the restroom, I was a cis heterosexual male person who knows only about who has just heard from his grandmother about trans people, and I've had only the negative things about trans people. And I'm going to work. I find a trans person coming over there. I go to the restroom and I see a trans person, um, whose sex assigned at birth was female, but is male, is standing over there. I I I'm not trying to justify my phobia, but I'm trying to say that the organization has to take the responsibility of ensuring that every minority in that organization is safe. And and there is a lot of work that you need to do before you employ trans people. So it's yes, it's important that many people, we don't look at sex and gender in the binary as we do every time. So हम लोग हमेशा बोलते हैं हमारा organization, my organization is very gender balanced because it has 50% men and 50% women. No, it's not. Where are the trans people? Okay, even if you take a percentage of how many trans people are there, and you this thing, do you have even one trans person over there or a gender non-binary person? So it becomes incredibly important that we make our workplaces. Excuse Sonia, that's my dog. So so uh, so it becomes extremely important that we stand up and we make our workplaces safe before we employ people. Then you'll keep complaining that you know what, trans people are quitting our organization. We did such a good job. You didn't do a good job by employing trans people. You did a good job. You added more profits to your company by employing diversity, by ensuring that your organization is diverse. So you need to come from a point of humility. Don't have trans people or women or Dalits or anybody as diversity hires. Ensure that people are educated. Don't demean a person by just making a person a diversity hire. Just to make sure that you make a good public statement. Ensure that you're educated about it, and so that it's a safe space for everybody.
True. Thanks, Harish. But just a funny note. When your dog started barking, the host thought it was my dog, and the host muted me. So just an insight to the
We are.
host.
Say hi
It's
to
not my
Krishna.
dog. Hello, Krishna.
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 My,
Hi,
my
Krishna.
grandmother hates cats, so I've named them after gods.
Now she can't hate them anymore.
He can't say Krishna ko bahar fek do. It sounds so blasphemous.
I can relate to that.
That's a great idea. We can use that for adoptions when we do adoption drive. But thanks, Harish. Like the note that you mentioned about not showing superiority, I've witnessed this a lot of in a lot of people that there is no factor of humility. They feel as if they are doing a favor to to a minority group by giving them a chance to come and be with them. So maybe that has to change. And one more thing, like during the pandemic, we were in fact interacting with a lot of transgender groups. We were doing a lot of relief supports. So what I've also noticed is, they would love to be in only their group. They do not want to step out, or they do not want to interact. But if you go into their group, they talk to you in a very nice way, or they receive you very nicely. And I've also seen that, I have witnessed it, so it is coming from my end. So I've seen them not respecting themselves a lot. So they not believing that they have a life, or it is just our lives are like this itself. I don't think we're going to change. Or they are too much, they abide a lot to their gurus in their communities. So what is a message that you'd want to give to them? Even they want to step out of that community, something is stopping them. Is it, what is it?
I think again, the onus of inclusion lies on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. They don't have to strive hard to be included by the so-called mainstream society. It is the so-called mainstream society which has to ensure that there is equity before equality. So that is something that we need to have. The reason why some trans people, again, they are not a monolith. There are different kinds of trans people. I know good trans people, bad trans people. I know annoying trans people, very kind trans people. I know all kinds. So I know vegan, I know non-vegetarian. I know all kinds of trans people. So they're not a monolith. But one thing that's some of them, they don't break the tradition and they don't come out because many a times and the same question is asked to women also, right? Why are you in an abusive marriage for 10 years? Why didn't you, if you're so intelligent, you're so educated, why didn't you break through at so many years before? So rather than externalizing and asking that question to them, it's important that we understand that as society, where what are our fault lines, what are our fallacies, where have we kind of challenged, and what is that we have done that inhibits people to come out and embrace themselves completely. And to also answer Saujanya question, yes, it's not just trans people, even lesbian uh, or rather queer women who I remember the space is dominated by queer men. I'm so many a times, even when I came out like 15, 17 years before, I remember that and all our meetings, all our LGBT meetings were G meetings. It was only gay people sitting and discussing things amongst each other. And that's because of the fact that we go through double the amount of discrimination. One, because of their gender. Second, because of their sexuality, if they're queer women. So it gets even more difficult. And now people have started opening up. You have uh, websites that are run by queer women. There's Gacy Family, which is run by queer women. There are support groups which are dedicated to queer women. I remember this very important incident, which offended a lot of gay men. Gacy Family, because all these, when you had the LGBT parties, happened to be gay parties, where you used to have like these 10 or 15 queer women who used to be huddled up in one corner, and they obviously, and because it's gay men, people often assume that girls will be safe and they will be okay with just so many gay men hovering around them. But each one of us wants people like us around us, so you can't just think that you've made a safe place by just having a majority of men over there, even if they are queer men. So Gacy Family came up with this party plan where they said that, what, we will be accommodating of men, but we want to have the numbers skewed. So what we are going to do is we are going to have men who accompany queer women. So if you're coming with queer women, then you will be allowed to come to the party. If you don't come, then you'll have to tell us. We will team you up with a queer woman or a trans woman. Gay men took a lot of offense. They thought that this was discriminatory. They didn't understand the idea that there needs to be numbers which are skewed to create safe spaces was not something that because gay men have enjoyed that privilege, and I'm saying that as gender fluid, but majority of my life I've lived my life only as a cis gay man. So so I know that these things exist. So the onus always is on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. Sorry, I gave another TED talk. Sorry.
Thanks, Saujanya. So, hope Harish answered your question, because I'm coming back to you now. That is, we have one question from the audience. Why are period leaves and maternity leaves limited to big corporate companies? When and how do you think will it reach everyone, including the labor class?
Yeah. So a huge number of women in India are working in unorganized sector. Okay, unorganized sector. So unorganized sector, like say most women in you can look at the the urban areas like Hyderabad or Bangalore. Most Dalit women are working as housemaids. Okay, so how do you make it possible that in this unorganized section, sector, that women will get the period leave or maternity leave and all? So secondly, see, even the maternity leave part, okay, so you look at the corporate sector. So if you are like, if you're a woman, what is the percentage of women in the corporate sector? Okay, IT sector, the popular IT sector. You go to high-tech city, the number of men who are working in these IT companies is always higher. So first thing is that, I mean, people say if you're visibly pregnant, you least likely that you will be accommodated. But the thing is, in India, there is also another logic that goes without saying. If you're engaging a woman, most women are, going to get married. A large number of middle class women are going to get married, and invariably the marriage is all about reproduction. So therefore one is going to become pregnant and get your leave. So they are going to discourage, the moment you ask these leaves, they are going to, why my company should pay a woman for 6 months or 4 months, without receiving her labor, okay, her intellectual or whatever kind of labor. But the question is, who has to monitor this? The state has to monitor this. Who are we giving birth to? Why are we giving birth to children? In order to continue their lineage, right? You're not going to give your surname. You're not going to have a baby, as a single mother. Very, very minute number of women are doing that. Okay, at least in the middle class community, you are only actually giving birth to a child for the male community. So therefore, why not a state which can also be very patriarchal? Let me tell you, state is not, is a technocratic entity. It's also very patriarchal. It also can be casteist. You know that, right? So therefore, the state that can be patriarchal, and the state that is promoting patriarchy, and the state that tells you to give birth to a child and make the husband's name as the, the surname of your child, can also accommodate women to have a child and also work. But both are not for the sake of herself. She's doing it for the family, for the heterosexual, caste endogamous family that she is doing it. Okay. So, but the state is not monitoring this. Okay. So therefore it doesn't go, the fruits won't go, even if it's a private, we talk about private IT sector. Okay. Who is giving the space for them to start a company in Hyderabad? Okay, in Bangalore? So it is the state is giving permission. And whose resources they are using? They are using Indian communities' resources. And then why this private company would not accommodate women from the same society from where you have exploited various resources, okay, including the resources, the human resources. Okay, so these are the questions, very large questions connected to, I would say, the capitalism, the state that is subscribing to capitalism, and that too in a very liberal way, without putting the strong conditions on how women should be accommodated, even the reservation, suppose, if you ask. Okay, so it's not that private people cannot say that we won't we won't see, even if it's a private company, they are within our state, right? So they have to follow whatever the state the rules that are enforced on each and every individual, including the private person. So even in your home, there are laws, right? It's because it's your home, you can't beat your wife. okay, and say that it is my private space. The state also will penetrate into your bedroom, your room, your house. So therefore, it is ultimately we have to demand the state to not lose its lose kind of liberal, give liberal space to all these private companies or unorganized sectors. So that is the first question we have to ask. Okay, so the here state has to, when state can monitor who is eating what, okay, when state can say that someone cannot eat beef, can also say someone cannot beat your wife, some company should give, it's an organized sector, right, should give the maternity leave, and state itself is not giving here. Okay, that's the whole question.
Thank you, Sajnya. That was so right. When it comes from the central or from the state, maybe the impact would be much larger than if it is only limited to one sector. But thanks to each and everyone, all the speakers, for being patient and answering all the questions. We are running short of time, so if anyone has any questions, please drop them here or send it to us through Facebook or Instagram. We're going to send it to the speakers, and we'll share the answer with you. Moving forward, I'd like to now introduce and hand it over to Arun Yellamati, the founder of Youngistan Foundation. Arun has worked as a journalist for over 6 years, covering entertainment, lifestyle, and social change. But it is social change that he is most passionate about. So, as the founder and head of Youngistan Foundation since 2014, Arun has been working on the issues that we have been talking about today as well, as education, child rights, homelessness, and animal rights through our regular programs, through partnerships, and through social awareness campaigns. Over to you, Arun.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I was about to say good night, but such an insightful evening that we had. I think this is one of our favorite topic where we want to sit and discuss and see how we can address these important issues in media and film, as they both play such a large role in especially India. I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers today for being so patient. Sachet, Preetam, Harish, Dr. Saujanya, and Dhanya for being there with us and trying to make some important points that we all need to listen today. And I think it's more than listening. It's time for us to start acting what all we heard today. And I still remember that there was a time when I was a journalist. One of the major concerns that we used to have was write articles. Like, there were few things that I wouldn't want to write, and our people around, our bosses used to come and tell us, no, this is what the readers read, so you have to write addressing topics that that attract them, because end of the day it's all about the readers. I think it's high time for readers like you and me to and people are watching. It's high time for us to play a bigger role than depending on and complaining on news, saying newspapers are writing this. We need to educate ourselves to read what matters the most. I think that plays a bigger role. And I remember also sharing this one fact about there was this big nice movie that was released. It was called Tumbad. I do not know how many of you know the film, but it was so pained. I remember the same time, there was a press conference happening in the city, and I went to interview the director, and I went to watch the movie. Fantastic movie. Very few people came to watch that movie, but there was a big star movie simultaneously was releasing somewhere else, and a lot of people went to watch that press conference. But I think it's high time for you and me to take a decision and play a bigger role in as a citizen, as a viewer, as a reader, to not to complain a lot about movies and what people write, but also what we read and what we watch. That's what I think will make a larger difference in the community and in the country. So, such a brilliant insights by all the speakers. But as like again, I want to say it's high time for us to be the change makers. So what we watch and what we read will make a country better in terms of media and film. So let's be vigilant and smart, um, and stand up for things that are right. And thank you so much again. We want to have more of these discussions because films and journalism are our two biggest influences in our country, and we need to stand up and make a larger change. Again, a big thank you to all the viewers who stayed back and listened, and all the panelists. Thank you so much again for staying back, and a big congratulations to the organizing team. You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. And let's the conversation continue on our social media platforms, and let's stay connected and be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you. Over to Rutvika.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you for joining us. So I know it's too late, but if others could turn on their cameras, we can just take a virtual selfie. Maybe this is the only exciting thing people usually wait till the end for. So that time is here. But I don't see the cameras turning on. So we're gonna count 3, 2, 1. If your cameras are on, then good. If not, then okay. So I assume Harish went to give Krishna dinner. So we'll wait for Harish as well to come back. But meanwhile, I'd want to thank all the partners of today's event, Lama Khan, Breakthrough India, and the Jimmy Foundation, the News Minute, Ferry, and of course the people who supported us back end, that is ITS DG Studio. Thank you very much for designing our creatives, and thanks to Richard for joining us. Thanks to Richard and Lena, who is actually helping us with all the live streaming. And yeah, please keep pouring your suggestions, questions on the social media platforms. Don't limit your conversations only tonight. Like always, we say you have to implement it as well, not just listen and store it in your head. We'll have to act in our daily lives. That's when it truly matters to us, and that's when we see the change. Yeah, that's it from my end. And should we go ahead and take a picture, or
Yeah, let's just take a picture. If I think everybody is with the phone, but not in front of the camera also sometimes.
Yeah. We can just take a picture, and maybe I can Photoshop Harish, Danya, and Sachit and of course Pritam ji in the video in the Zoom. Lena, could you please help us click a picture? Yeah, have taken. So 3, 2, 1, say cheese. Thanks, guys, for joining.
And I think we can take screen captures from other footage too.
Done.
So
yes.
that everybody's faces are there. But again, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Rutvika, Neha, and Diksha, Dhira, Rinky, and everybody, organizing team, Shirley, for doing a brilliant job. Take care, be safe. Please go online and retweet, share the video so that more people can watch what we've discussed. And again, remember, you and me need to do something now. Take care, have fun, stay safe. Bye. I think if the organizing team is there, maybe we can just stay back for a quick 5 minutes discussion. And thank you, Richard. You can cut the streams.